Hello, everybody. Welcome to another dog training podcast. Hey, it's for people that are regular listeners of the podcast. You'll be aware that I've just had a pretty big break. It was a well-needed break, but we're back. We're back, refreshed, ready to go. So this podcast here is definitely a dog training podcast. This is quite a lot on deer dog training. The topic is dogs being hard to handle while hunting, which is a very, very common problem. Everyone deals with this to a certain extent, right? No matter how much you train your dog, no matter how well you train the dog, no matter how old the dog is, experienced the dog is, good the dog is, perfect the dog is, like, oh geez, and I'm running into a side tangent in the first 60 seconds of this podcast, but the tangent I'm thinking of is like the definition of perfect, and in the past I've said this dog's hunting perfect, or you can have a dog's hunting perfectly by a certain age, and people have criticized me for saying that in the past and freaking out about it and saying, no dog's perfect by that age. No dog's perfect. Pretty much that. No dog is perfect by that age. That's absolute bullcrap. And people flipping out on social media and stuff, because they're pretty much taking out of context and misinterpreting what I'm saying. There's an old saying about anyone that says their dog is perfect, and that's basically that they are a liar, So, and really what I mean by, no dog is ever perfect, ever. So, to me, when you say, a dog's hunting, and I don't really say that thing like that a dog's hunting perfectly anymore, but hunting very, very well, or about as good as they can be type of thing. And they're never ever perfect, right? Never. And no dog is, no person is, nothing is ever perfect. And with a deer dog, and any hunting dog for that matter, you're always control and drive is a balance, because if you screw them down too hard and tight, you'll start to lose a bit of drive. And then as they get drive and confidence, and as they start to learn and really click and get into it, and after their first few hunts, they're like, oh wow, okay, the dog is thinking, okay, I get exactly how this works now, let's go. Then they can get even more of a handful. And that is quite common for a dog that you train very, very well to be pretty damn good and easy its first couple of hunts, because they're new and working it out. And then after you shoot a few deer and they start gaining confidence and they get too full of themselves, and then they get harder to handle. And when I say harder to handle, it's mainly just pushing their range, turning the ears off a bit, pushing their range. And you're in that situation where you're you're sort of trying to yell quietly because the dog's just moving in too fast, and so we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that whole thing a lot. It's something that I've talked about a fair bit in podcasts, but and I have no idea how this is going to go. My notes are totally out of control. I've got holy heck! What is going? I've got basically 5 pages of notes. It was way more than I usually have, but these notes are sort of based on, these notes are based on questions from people in the Big Game Indicating Dogs Inner Circle Facebook page, which is a closed private Facebook group of people that are following the Deer Dog Training Blueprint. You can check out the Deer Dog Training Blueprint at biggameindicatingdogs.com. And even though I've been pretty quiet on the social media, had a break from that, had a break from doing the podcasts and YouTube videos and everything, the blueprint and the inner circle and people signing up and jumping on and training dogs has been full blast the whole time behind the scenes there, on my website, Paul Michaels Courses, and in the inner circle and all of that. And this is all stuff that has come up as questions from the inner circle of people that are following my video courses. But for anyone listening to this, there's going to be a lot of useful stuff. I'll be referring to the blueprint and my courses a lot, but there'll be a lot of general dog training stuff in this. But again, this is really for people that are hard out following my series, people that are interested in following my series, people that are interested, and I'm going to talk about bird dog training a lot in this, particularly towards the end, and especially bird dog training with a deer dog. And I've got a whole series on that, and I've already done a podcast on that in the past, and I'll get into a heap more on that and where more information on that is. But this whole even if you're not following my series or you're not really thinking about it, you're just listening to this podcast to learn about dog training, there's going to be a ton of stuff in here for anyone that's just interested in learning about dog training, deer dog training, bird dog training, and particularly the versatile thing, training a deer dog to then be a bird dog too. I'm going to talk about that and how I do that and how that works. The main question, this whole podcast and 5 pages of notes pretty much comes from 2 main questions from one person out from the inner circle that's following the blueprint and is interested in training their dogs fully trained as a deer dog, going well, but a little bit of a handful. It's like overconfident and pushing its range and being a little bit too forward and full on than the owner would like. And I've got a lot of notes on that whole subject. And then that same guy is asking, dog's going well, blueprint's been great, dog's a little bit of a handful, keen to hear any ideas about dealing with that. And I'm also pretty keen to train it as a bird dog now that it's fully trained as a deer dog. How do I do that? How do I train my deer dog to be a bird dog without stuffing up the deer dog stuff and all of that sort of stuff? How does it work? So that's pretty much what this podcast is. Lots and lots of notes. This is, man, I don't know what's happened with these notes here, and I don't know how it's going to go, but back in the day, I'd have 8 to 12 notes for a podcast. Sorry, I'm just drinking. Here I've got 5 pages with about 30 notes a page. So dogs hard to handle while hunting. So first of all on that, like, training to a very high level is very important. And if you look at the deer dog training blueprint, and it's interesting, right? Because like back in the day, I'm talking 10 years ago, it's coming up the 10-year anniversary for the blueprint soon. Man, things have changed in that time. Like the main public discussion online and stuff has changed so much in the last 10 years. A lot has impacted that, right? The blueprints obviously impacted it a lot, but there's been a lot more than that too, like just with the proliferation of the internet and information and all of that. Like, but 10 years ago, when I first brought out the blueprint and started going really public, talking about training deer dogs and stuff, the first hurdle was literally this, and it's the craziest thing, that The first hurdle was, or the first thing that people started sort of attacking the blueprint. I've lost camera. Hang on. The first big objection to the blueprint in the public sphere sort of thing was people literally saying, what is this guy talking about? You just take the dog hunting. What? And I'm talking about training dogs, like and having a training program and training dogs for 12 months. And people were just going, this guy is nuts. Not everyone by any means, but it was pretty surprising how it was amazing how many people had that attitude, even just 10 years ago. Like that was one of the first things. What is this guy talking about? And the craziest thing about that though is that, you know, I've got books from literally from 1960s, early 1960s, talking about training Labrador retrievers for 2 years and training pointing dogs for birds for 3 years. Like that stuff, that's like over 100 years old now. And that's the origin of hunting dogs, and including a lot of the breeds that people are using today for deer dogs. Those dogs were bred by people that were spending 3 years training them. 3 years, man. And I'm like, hey, maybe we spend like 8 or 10 months just sort of ironing out some of the kinks. And people are like, God, you're crazy. Okay. What I mean by how crazy the difference is like I see it online every now and again, mainly when I've been tagged in something and someone posts on a hunting forum on Facebook or something, you know, one of the big hunting pages. Hey guys, I've just got a pup that I want to be a deer dog and I'm trying to decide what training program to follow. And sometimes I see those posts because someone will tag me and say, oh, you know, follow Big Game Indicating Dogs Blueprint and that, which is awesome when people do that, by the way. It's getting that type of support just means a lot and it's awesome. But for someone to come out, just that awareness that I've got a puppy that I want to train to be a deer dog, and I'm trying to choose what system I'm going to follow. 10 years ago, I was like, hey guys, I'm on like big hunting forums and stuff. Hey guys, I'm like, you know, putting the system together on how to train deer dogs. And people are like, sounds like a load of crap to me. Like, why are you even training a dog? Like, honestly, that is a real post in a conversation, you know, and like it would really gain steam too. And people would pile on and there'd be this big conversation about it. So for me to see the change in 10 years and then, you know, that guy will say, I'm trying to choose what system to follow. Like that's just the done thing now that you follow a system when you get a pup. And, no one's saying, what are you talking about? Just go hunting, bro. People, it's a genuine conversation about what system to follow and talking about training. So it's changed like crazy amount in the last 10 years, which is great. It is great because it was in a pretty weird spot like 10 years ago. The main you know, the main conversation and some of the main attitudes and stuff out there about it. And like, holy heck, did it create some problems with people just getting pups and like taking them hunting and like shooting guns without even any proper introduction. And got like the first one-on-ones and boot camp dogs that I was taking in and stuff was like starting at a pretty crazy difficult level with all these pretty much ambulance at the bottom of the cliff type stuff. And that was why I made the blueprint, because it was like And that's why the blueprint is the way it is. And it's some people, another criticism is it's super serious and like heavy weighting and super in depth and detailed, and that I go on and stuff. That was because at the time I was like neck deep in one-on-ones and remedial training with dogs that had so many problems, and I was working one-on-one with so many people actually trying to help them to train their dogs and getting all the questions and stuff. So it's like the blueprint was really is really designed to like fix all of the problems that can happen if you don't know what you're doing and you're just like grabbing a pup and winging it, you know. So and then that was the big the biggest part of me developing as a trainer was really learning that, like, that far out. Like when I started studying dog training, and when I say that, I didn't go to like some dog training school or whatever. I was just trying to train my own dogs for me, and I just started getting any stuff that I can get, all of the best books and not that there was much around, but videos, and I was just trying to read about dog training and find out about dog training. That was the other crazy thing, because as soon as I started looking into it, I found the real trainers talking about like starting right from a pup and training all the way through. This is going to be fun. My monitor's turning off every 10 minutes. And that's what tells me that my camera's still recording. It's only like $1,000 monitor, you know. You wouldn't expect it to be the sort of thing that would stay turned on while you're using it. That would just, you know, that'd be crazy. Why would you want it to do that? Oh, it's off again. Why would you want it to stay on? Yeah, I've got to have the monitor, because if the camera dies while I'm podcasting, then you get to the end of a 3-hour podcast and you like haven't been recording it. So I need a monitor, and yeah, anyway, that's like $1,000 monitor that just turns off every 10 minutes. So that's good. What the heck was I talking about? Yeah, me figuring it out for myself. Me basically 10 years ago, actually a lot longer than that, knowing that there's people that know how to train dogs really, really well. I'd seen that actually right from a kid. I've talked about this in podcasts heaps too, about the dog show, which was like sheepdog trialing in New Zealand. So some of the best sheepdog trainers and handlers doing trials with their dogs, and their dogs were just like perfect remote control dogs on the whistle and all controlled and that. I watched that right from a kid, you know. So right from a kid, I knew there were people that knew how to train dogs really, really well. And I hadn't seen bird dog trainers or trialing. I hadn't been around really good bird dogs, but I'd read about it. I'd read about it in magazines, and I knew what sheepdog trialing was, and I knew people did bird dog trialing, like right from a kid. I always knew people knew how to train dogs really, really well, and that I didn't. And then in like my 20s, late 20s, and early 30s, I just went hard out, like working it out for myself. And straight away, as soon as I started researching it, I started finding people that were like, they'd get a pup and they had a plan right from day one, you know, and they were training right through. And not only that, like that, how's that one really old book that has some of the better trainers in the world talking about bird dog training, and they're talking about a bird dog pointer isn't finished till it's 3 years old. That's from the early 1960s. You know, and so that's what we're dealing with, guys. Like that really, that's how good trainers look at it, and you train properly with a system right from the start right through. And this is the point I'm coming to, okay, with this and dogs being hard to handle. And the guy that asked this question started his dog off quite young, which is something that you can look at it too. I've been guilty of telling people you can start dogs off young, but also, like, particularly early on, people were like a lot of people were so aghast at the idea of training a dog till it's 12 months old. And I've started dogs off at 8 months old, 9 months old, 10 months old. I have, and they've done well too, with really nice dogs that I've trained very, very well, and then I've done a lot of hunting with, and with my level of experience and the amount that I'm hunting, and a very, very nice dog like Fly. I started Fly off when she was like 7 months old. Fly, purebred heading dog. It's extremely biddable, meek, strong-eyed, like beautiful little heading dog, man. And I trained her like heaps, and then started hunting with her full-time hunting with her, you know. And she started off like basically perfect, and just got better and better over time. And she was an absolute weapon by the time she was about 10 months old. She really was. And then, you know, and she just got better and better. And then I tried bailing with her, and that sort of made her a little bit harder to handle and not quite as good. But my first 2 notes: first of all, get the training to a very high level. You basically have to do what people think is overdoing it, but it's actually not overdoing it. People rush it. People say they have done the training. That's a little bit of a brutal note, this one. I'll jump back to that. First of all, I'm going to say it again. First of all, get the training to a very high level. You basically have to delete basically. You have to do what most people think is overdoing it, but it's actually not overdoing it. Okay? There's a video on the Big Game Indicating Dogs YouTube channel called A Walk with Print. And it's like, I was about to say, he's like a robot. He's like a robot, man. But he's super relaxed, super happy, just like full on dog smile the whole time. Happy panting, just cruising, like stoked to be out for a walk. But honestly, watch that video. His automatic stop, his stop to it, automatic stop, automatic turn, like his stop to, if you watch the Deer Dog Training Blueprint and you watch through to the later stages, print stop to the shot, automatic stop, range, the level of control and how good it is and how happy he is about it is to a pretty crazy high level. Like that video, a walk with print video on the Big Game Indicating Dogs YouTube channel. Go and watch that. If you're like in the bush and you're going, my dog's a little bit hard to handle, dog's a bit full on. And I think Print was about 15 months old when I first started hunting him, if I remember correctly. Especially by the time I start, because it took a while to shoot his first deer. I got a little bit behind in training in the blueprint, and like time-wise, it was just like some of those 4 week, those, okay guys, this is what we're doing this month. Sometimes like I got a week behind in the last month and a week behind this month and a week behind next month. So by the time I'm on part 9, that's actually 10 months after part 1, and yeah, that. So I got behind. So I got printed 8 weeks old, made 10 1-month parts of training. So really he should have, if it was all bang on schedule, he would have been starting to hunt when he was 12 months old, but really he was more like 14 months old. And then by the time I did a couple of weeks hunting, and then like by the time part 12, he was like 15, 16 months old. And then by the time it was like, okay, I've finished the 12 parts of the blueprint, I've shot a few deer, he was really like 15, 16 months old. And I think this guy's that asked the question, I think he's starting his dog off at 8 months old. It's such a big difference, man. But if you're starting your dog off at 8 months old and I'm basically starting print off at 15 months old, I've done double the training. Double. And that is a lot. It's a lot, man. So that's my first big point is like people say the blueprint's overdoing it, or it's overcomplicated, or it goes on and on and on, or why I haven't got time to do all that, or this seems crazy. But it's really not. And that's what gets it, that's what gets, you sort of have to go overkill, but it's not overkill. And it's not about doing tons and tons of training and being super regimented and real hard on the dog. It's just about chilling out, like chill right out. Employ a lot of patience and just keep super chill and calm and locked into the training, and take your time and just rinse and repeat, man, and let the dog age and just keep repeating the training. Like it's almost like less training over a longer period of time, and just chill out. And 3 or 4 sessions a week. By the time the dog gets up around a year old, now it's, if it's going to be an inside dog, it's coming inside, it's chilling out with you more, it's having its freedom sessions outside, it's getting a little bit more freedom, it's getting older, so it's getting more relaxed, it's not that niggly, chewy, whiny puppy anymore. It's starting to turn into a dog. It's getting a bit more chilled out. You've done most of your major training, right? By then you've done all your introduction to water and scent work and introduction to gunfire and all the little bits and pieces. You've got all of the box ticked. You've sort of done all of the work now, and you've been through all the training, you've watched all the blueprint, you know all the drills and all the markers and all the bits and pieces. And now a training session can just be like a long walk, like that video, a walk with print. Like that was right at the end of his training before I started hunting him. And that's what a session was. I'd just go out for a walk with them, and a training session was just a walk, and we'd just do our drills. And he's liking it because he's out of the kennel, off the section, walking around. A stop drill is just like telling the dog to sit so I can walk up and give him a pat and tell him to go again. You see in that video, he's chill as, happy. Every time I say sit, he just sits, panting, like dog smile, panting, waiting for a pat. And you just rinse and repeat that. And any little issues that come up, iron them out, let the dog age, repeat. And just tease it all right out. and patience and practice and practice, perfect practice. Let the dog age and like just overdo it, man. It's not overdoing it, but it's sort of, don't make the mistake of thinking like the right amount of training is too much. And don't make the mistake of thinking you're ready to go before you actually are. You know? And I'm not pointing the finger at anyone. I'm not saying that any particular people, you obviously haven't done it right or your dog's not good or anything. I haven't even seen the guy's dog that asked the question and all that sort of stuff. But I have seen a lot of dogs. I've seen people that say, I followed the blueprint, dog's a bloody handful, it's the bloody dog, it's this and that, it's whatever it is. And yeah, here's the note. The diet comparison analogy, okay? And someone says, I followed the deer dog training blueprint and I've taken the dog hunting a couple of times. I've shot a couple of deer, but the dog's a blooming handful and it's just too full on. Or doing one-on-ones. And again, this isn't pointed at anyone in particular, but doing one-on-ones and someone says, I've done, I've done heaps of training, but I'm struggling with the stop drill, and we do a one-on-one. Or that person that says, here's my dog, you run into someone randomly and use the blueprint, shot a couple of deer, but it's sort of a bit of a handful. And I'm like, what's your sit like? And they say sit, and the dog sits down and gets up and wriggles around and goes around in circles and jumps up and down and moves around and pisses about. They don't even have a proper sit. They don't even have a proper sit, okay? I've trained a lot of dogs and some really difficult ones. Now, here's the diet comparison, all right? If someone wants to lose weight and you give them a diet of eat 1,500 calories a day, and you give them the diet for that, like the weight of the different foods in that, this is how much chicken breast you eat a day. This is how much rice. This is how much broccoli. 1,500 calories a day. That's 1,500 calories is not much, man. That is not much food. Eat 1,500 calories a day. Walk 10,000 steps a day. And here's a solid weightlifting routine. You're doing like a full body weightlifting routine 4 times a week. You're eating 1,500 calories a day. You're walking 10,000 steps is about, like super roughly, depending on a lot of fat, about 8 kilometers. And yeah, it's like 10,000 steps, depending, you can run it relative, like a fast walk. A fast walk is about 5 kilometers an hour, maybe 6, like 5.5, 5.7, like stepping out. So what? So, it's like an hour and a half, full blast, full speed walking. A lot of people would take 2 hours to walk 8 kilometers or to do 10,000 steps. So you're walking flat out for 2 hours a day, and you're lifting weights real heavy for like 45 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week, and you're eating 1,500 calories a day. And that person goes away and comes back and like, it's not really working. And you weigh them and they're not losing weight. They're eating more than 1,500 calories a day and they're not following that bloody training. You know what I mean? Like there's... Yeah, you're not. You just no one is going to eat 1,500 calories a day, do 10,000 steps and lift weights like crazy and not if they're overweight and not lose weight, you know, because that's a crazy sort of a setup. I've worked with 1 or 2 dogs out of hundreds that even after I haven't really worked with any dogs that I can't get doing like a rough sit within a couple of weeks. You know, and man, out of hundreds of dogs, I've only worked with 1 or 2 that are sort of difficult to get a pretty good sit going within about 2 to 4 weeks. And I've pretty much never worked with a dog that I can't get doing a pretty damn good sit in 6 weeks. And I've actually never worked with a dog that I've had in my own care, that I'm kenneling, managing it, training it every day. The main dog that I had real trouble with, it was living with the owner that I don't think wasn't doing the correct stuff with it, and I was just getting that dog occasionally and working with it. And that was pretty difficult. I never had a boot camp dog at my place that I was kenneling, giving it proper structured freedom sessions, walking it a couple of times a day, training it once or twice a day. Some of them I trained 4 times a day. I never had a dog that I couldn't get walking good on a long line and doing a stop drill. Like just a basic stop drill. And like maybe it's different if it's an older dog that has had tons of stuff done wrong with it, and it's like a real freaking handful. But a dog that you've had from a pup that is like any of the main deer dog breeds, you know, a Vizsla, a GSP, a Labrador, or a Pointer, or a, you know, heading dog, or a cross of any of those, and pretty much all of the main hunting breeds. I've never seen one that you can't get doing a good sit drill. Like, after they're about 6 months old, I can do that in a couple of weeks. I can pretty much have them ready to hunt in 6 weeks, you know? So when people say they've done the training, but they don't even have a proper sit. Okay? And that to me is like someone coming back. If you've got the blueprint and you come and you say, oh, here's my dog, I followed the blueprint and it's a real handful, and I say, show me your stop drill, and they don't have a proper stop drill, like a rough, just like, hey, sit, and the dog just sits and stays there for at least, like, if they say sit and the dog just doesn't sit, and they have to say sit 3 times, and they go and they step towards the dog and say sit, and the dog sits and gets back up and wags its tail and sit, and they don't have a sit. You should just Miko sit, and she sits and just pretty much stays there, you know, until told to go. And a real good sit, you say sit, and you walk away and throw stuff around and clap your hands and shoot guns. And, you know, in the blueprint, I've got Fly running around, Print in circles, barking and shooting guns and throwing sticks and doing all sorts of stuff, and Print's just sitting there on a stop drill. That's increasing distraction on the stop. I'm talking like, if we're talking on your back lawn and your dog's there and you're telling me it's a handful, but you followed the blueprint, and you can't get your dog to sit for 5 seconds on your back lawn, I'm sorry, but you haven't done it properly. You haven't. And that's like, and again, this is, yeah. This is a pretty harsh analogy, but it's something that I've thought of, and I don't know a better analogy for it. That's like someone that wants to lose 10 kilos, and you give them 1,500 calories a day, walk 10,000 steps a day, and lift weights for 45 minutes 4 times a week. And they say, I'm trying and it hasn't, and they come back a month later, and they come back 3 months later, and they say, I'm trying it and it's not working, and you put them on the scale and they weigh the same or they're a kg heavier. It's like, I'm sorry, you're not. You know that they're not following that, because you can't do that and not lose weight, you know. So you've got to train to a really high level. It feels like you're overdoing it, but you're really not, you know. And you've just got to rinse and repeat and let the dog age and don't rush. And, you know, like 12 months is fast. 12 months is fast, man. Starting a dog off at 12 months is fast. 15 months is way better. 18 months is even better. 8 months, you can do it. I've done it. Lots of people have done it. But just, I mean, think of that thing, right? Like, if you're starting a dog off at 8 months old, and really by the end of part 12, Prince coming up like 16 months old, I've had double the training, bro. And that's a lot. And there's a huge difference between 8 months old and 16 months old to a dog. It's huge, man. It's like the difference between a 13-year-old kid and an 18-year-old, you know? It's such a big difference, man. It's huge. So that's the main thing. Like, people saying my dog's hard to handle while hunting, like, your sit drill should be like really, really good, like crazy good, like really good. You know, your sit drill should be really good. Your automatic stop should be crazy good. Your turn command, like all of that stuff. Watch that walk with Print. You know, it's even if I do say so myself, it's kind of crazy how good he is in that video. It's simple stuff, you know. He's not, it's, and that's the thing, right? Like, it's not, and sort of the mainstream dog training stuff is like quite weird. And there's all this, and not this, I'm not having a shot at them or anything, but like the agility stuff, and people think like a well-trained dog. I remember one time at the end of a one-on-one session with someone, and like, I think it was like the family turned up in the car, you know, and the guy had the dog, and I met his wife and his kids were there, and we all met. It was all good, and then it was like, and then me and him went and did the one-on-one session, just me and him, the two of us, and his wife and the kids went off and did something for a couple of hours. And then, like, right as we were finishing up, the wife and kids were back, and we were all talking, and everyone met Print, and I think I had Fly then too, and that, and the kids, and because the parents had obviously said, oh, you know, Paul's a dog trainer, this guy's a dog trainer, your dad's going to see a dog trainer, and the kids said, and at the end of one-on-ones, I used to get Print and Fly out and show how good just my basic sit was, and like put both of them on a sit, call one dog off the sit individually, and then tell one dog to stay and walk off with the other dog, give the double peep, walk in front, and the dog walks tidy in front, do another stop, the dog sits perfectly when I hiss, to quiet little, dog just sits down, bang, eye contact, like solid stop, I walk away, call the other dog comes over, give my double peep, walk in front, dog swings right in front, walks in front, sit, call the other dog over, tell Print to sit, make Fly bark and jump around, Print stays sitting, Fly sit, here Print comes, Print sit. Like, it's super simple stuff, but to get it to that high level is difficult. And this kid said, he had in his head, like this young kid, you know, it was super hard case. And he had in his head that I was a dog trainer, so my dog should be able to do tricks. He was like, show us some tricks. And he was thinking like, I don't know, you know, the old bend over and the dog hops on your back and like hops off and jumps through your legs, and like, I don't know, some juggling stuff, or hops up on its hind legs, or like sit and shake hands, like those super sort of Disney style dog tricks. So, but Print walking around in that video, the walk with Print, and the automatic stops and the range and the turn and like the hand signals and all of that. And the huge thing, guys, is so huge, is like the quality of that. Like when someone says sit, 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 and then they have to step towards the dog, sit, and the dog's all wriggly in it, and it goes down, and then it chews the grass and wriggles a couple of steps and then sits up, and they say sit again, all of that crap, versus what Print is like in that video, all of that transfers over to everything else. You know, and the automatic stop is basically your range. You know, and having it to that crazy high level where the dog's doing it first time you say, every time, and it's not mad about it, and it's super attentive, and its go is as good as its stop. Like, you never have to say go twice, and it doesn't hop up and take off, it just gets up and cruises. Like the level of the quality of it, like a sit's not just a sit, you know. It's and where you get all of that stuff too, like the sit drill's really the foundation of it. And if you get that perfect, like that carries over into everything else, that, you know, and all of that stuff does, and it carries over into the bush and range and calmness and control and all of that. So that's really the biggest thing, is like get the training to a very high level, do heaps of it, don't rush it, rinse and repeat. Yeah. And like most of these things I've talked about on podcasts before, but there's a couple of little anecdotes here that are really good. Hang on, I'll just have a drink. I'm just smashing the coffee and waters here. So one is like the old shepherd. I went to look at a pup once for real old school OG followers, people that remember Indy. Indy was after Fly. I'm trying to remember when I got this pup. And I went and looked at it. I didn't actually want it. And a long story, I won't go into it. But I went to look at this pup, and I was talking to this shepherd. He was an old shepherd, like in his 70s sort of thing. And I was basically bragging about having dogs ready to hunt by like 8 months old. And he just like closed his eyes and just cringed. Like he just went, he just like shook his head. And he said, he's like, it's too young. It's too young. There's no point. There's no point. And I was like, man, she's going good though. She's going so good. And he just like cringed again. Just, you know, when like someone just closes their eyes and just like bows their head, and they're just thinking, oh no. Like, and he said they just get to know too much. before they're ready for it. That's what it is, you know. Yeah, they get to know too much before they're ready to deal with it. It's like the child Hollywood star, you know, that a lot of them like struggle later on when really it's better to sort of ease into that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's it. You can get them ready, you know, and I've done it heaps. And it can work, and I've done it when it has worked. But that's getting the training to a crazy high level with an extremely well-suited dog, and then hunting heaps with the dog like full time, also handling it very, very well as I'm hunting too, like with the level of experience and practice and stuff that I had even back then. So, you know, like that's the crazy exception, man, when you're starting at 8 or 10 months old, and even 12 months is early, and even 15 months is early, like especially with some of the breeds, you know. But 12 or 15 months you can do it, but not if you don't get the training to a crazy high level, you know. And like that's the other thing, like crazy high level, that's not even that. I shouldn't even be using that terminology. I should be saying like 12 or 15 months is still young, but not if you've done the training properly. That's the thing. And a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that what is actually doing it properly is overdoing it, and they make the mistake of thinking they're ready to go when they're not. And that gap there between when you think you're ready and thinking you're ready, and then whether through experience or time or whatever, you realize, like I realize now, back in the day, it was hard, right? Because it was actually working, but it was the level that I was doing it to that was making it work. But like to nowadays, even if I had the right dog, even if I had the time, even if I was doing it to the level, I would just chill out for another like 6 months, because it's easier on me. It's easier on the dog. It's probably going to get a better outcome anyway. It's less risk of issues. I'm probably going to get a way better outcome actually. So just for me now, 10 years later, I'm just like my headspace on time frames of things and rushing it and where I want to get to and all of that is it's different. Yeah, it is. And it's just got more time, more training, you know? And like the blueprint is not overdoing it, man. It is fast. And the amount of training and the amount of steps and the amount of quote unquote complication, again, not the right terminology, because it's not over complication at all. It's doing it properly, you know. And I'll talk, and there's, I've got notes about this later on too, but you know, that was part of the reason why I had to have a break too, because I'd been in like go mode and do mode for so long on this, making the blueprint and then making the Palmico dog guide and then making the bird dog boot camp. It's been really good to have a break and sort of have time to reflect and process a little bit. And actually jump back into researching other systems again as well. And like the more I process it and the more I look back into other systems and the more I look into what's popped up since I made the blueprint and even in the bird dog training field in the last 3 or 4 years, is more and more stuff starting to pop up now. How do I put it? I've got notes on this later on, but yeah, the more I reflect on the blueprint and how it's done and how I train, and like also like processing the criticism and objections to it over the years too. It's like having a break and getting some space away from it and really looking at it and then looking around at other systems as well. Like, honestly, it's like, it's the blueprint is bang on, man. It honestly is. I barely change anything. And same with the Bird Dog series too. I barely change anything. And that's like been 100% honest. And the time and the amount of steps and the complication and the level of sophistication in it and everything. It's like you can't really remove much from it. You can't remove anything from it without compromising something somewhere or risking something. You know, that's why it's all in there. You can't really make it do it faster. If anything, you're better off spending a bit more time doing it. Actually, that's one of the things I would change, is less focus on rushing, and I would talk more about taking your time more. Take your time more. And I don't know how you focus more on like taking it seriously, and like how, like in the blueprint, everyone will know there's a lot of ranting and there's a lot of like this, like make sure you do this properly before you, that sort of like most of the blueprint really is really just trying to impress like showing you what to do and also impressing the importance of it all too, because it is, again, because the whole time I was doing it, I was up to my neck in people that were making all of the mistakes and helping them with their dogs and that, you know. Just smashing the cold brew coffees here. Another really interesting anecdote too on dog training from another experienced trainer was a guy that does well with gun dog trials, and he started one dog off really young, real young, and that dog was winning trials like unusually young. He couldn't take that dog hunting by the time it was 3 years old. That's what he said to me. That dog was, he said, he's like, I won't even take it hunting now. He's just a nightmare. And because me and him were actually talking about like time frames and how long to train for in that. And I was saying I was actually saying to him, I reckon it's 2 years, man, for a retriever. And I'm going to talk about that soon. You can do it faster. Yeah, you can have a dog getting ducks out of the water. It's crazy young. 6 months old, 8 months old, stuff like that. Easy. Getting a dog getting a duck out of the water. So when someone's saying, I reckon it's 2 years old, and someone's like, what are you, bro, I was just watching a 6-month-old dog get ducks out of the water, and I'm saying 2 years? It just, it sounds crazy. But once you've been through a few dogs and you've seen it go pear-shaped in a few different ways, and you've been in that situation where that guy's 3 years in, it's taken him 3 years, and after 3 years, he's at the point where he can't take that dog hunting anymore. So I'm talking about spending 2 years to get to the point where you've got a really good dog that you're going to have that dog for the next however long it lives for the rest of its life, 10, 12, a really old dog's like 15 years old. So that dog's, you're starting it off at 2 years old on the birds, and it is cranking at 2 years old, and it's got back and sides and steady, and like, it's a really freaking good dog. It's got all of the stuff that you want to get on a dog. And its first season, it's like a weapon. And by the time it's 3, it is like a freaking weapon, like a weapon. Its second season at 3 years old, it is a beast. And it's nice to have around. And now you've got that for like 7 years, 8 years, And in 7 years' time or 8 years' time, when that dog's still going good, but it's got a season or 2 left in it, you get another pup. That's how you do it. If you don't have a dog now and you want a good gun dog, you're a year away. If you get a pup tomorrow, you're 12 or 15 months away from having a good dog. If you want a bird dog, you're 2 years away from having a really good dog. Then you've got them for life, because you start the next one while the one you've got going is still going. And you preferably have a bit of overlap there. And, and that's just to minimize the risk. Because people say, God, what, 2 years? 2 years, man. People freak out about a year. Okay, and I'll talk about why later on. I've got a heap of notes on it. People freak out about a year, and then you say 2 years, and they're just like, what? And I sort of said that like carefully to this guy too. I was talking to him about bird dog training. I was thinking about, this is a few years ago. I was going to make the bird dog boot camp, and we're talking about that. And I said to him, I'm going to do it 2 years, man. And he was like, yeah, actually, this is a good trainer, man. It's an experienced guy. And he said, yeah, I've sort of been thinking about that too. And he said, one of my best dogs was winning trials when I can't remember how young it was, but it was young. Like maybe 12 months old, 18 months old, winning trials. He runs, which is really quite unusual for a dog to be trialing really good that young. By the time it was 3 years old, he couldn't even take it hunting anymore. And here's the big kicker, guys. And he said, and another guy that had one of this guy's pups, he didn't do anything with the dog till it was 3 years old. Nothing. No training, nothing. And then when the dog was 4 years old, he was winning trials and an absolute beast. Like that dog that was winning trials when it was 18 months old, but then couldn't take it hunting by 3 years old. That's the Hollywood star gone off the rails. That's the Hollywood, the kid that was got the kid, someone that become famous as a kid and didn't have the right guidance and structure, didn't have the right role models and people helping them through it. Just had people trying to just charge them into it, and parents and agents and stuff like that, just seeing them as a star and just wanting them to go and wanting to make the money off them and all of that. And just like, let's just have a star, without thinking about all of the ramifications that could come from doing that. And it was all a massive party for everyone involved for a certain amount of time, and it all goes off the rails later on. That's the dog that was winning trials younger than any, the extremely rare, amazing thing. Wow, that's amazing. How did you do that? Oh my gosh. That's amazing how good that young dog is. I've been there too. But then it was an absolute prick of a thing by the time it was 3 years old, versus this other guy that got a pup, didn't do anything with it for 3 years. Then like, oh, I might do something with this dog. Now, it had just been like a family pet for 3 years. Then he started training it and it started winning trials by the time it was. So that's two extreme ends of the scale, right? So really having the dog ready and like cranking at 24 months old is pretty quick. It's pretty quick, man. And again, you can have them pretty good by 12 months old. But especially with a duck dog, right? And especially like in the North Island, some of our mallard seasons in some places is 4 weeks. You know? It's a bit different. And then, you can shoot Powies for another while and stuff like that. Down south, it's longer. I don't know what it is in other countries. But you're talking about rushing that dog to just for a few weeks. And it's like, honest, just skip that first season, man. Probably if you were going to do it faster, like, because then with the bird dog too, right, it depends what time of year you get the dog. About 18 months is probably pretty reasonable. But honestly, like, in anyone that follows the bird dog training boot camp, my bird dog training series, I'll talk about how that works in a minute. Guys, there's a lot, man. By the time you get your hold sorted, your basic retrieve, your deliveries, your blinds, your straight lines, your range, your back and sides, your crosses, your blind back and sides and crosses, your water, like ponds, rivers, heavy cover, more long range, more multiples, multiple blinds. Then, every time you work on one aspect of it, it affects another aspect of it, and you've got to go back and tidy up, and you've got to do every one thing with all of the other things in mind. It's like a good retriever with proper blind back and sides and crosses. It starts to make it's fairly complicated, man. There's actually quite a bit to it. And here's the other thing too. It's like a dog that gets a duck out of the water is pretty damn easy. When I was like 14, I got a free Labrador out of the Loot magazine, out of the newspaper for free, and took it down to the duck pond, and I shot a duck, and the dog saw it hit the water. It jumped in, grabbed it, swam to the side, and come over to me holding the duck. It's not hard to get a Labrador to get a duck out of the water. They'll do it. That can be the biggest problem, is stopping them from doing it and them getting all unsteady and they just turn into a nightmare. But having proper steadiness and like a dog that goes in and out of a dog blind properly, a dog that has proper blind back and sides and crosses, and then once you've had that, a dog that'll do that, and you're aware of it all, and you're aware of how it all works, and you've trained it, and you've done it, and then once you've had bird dogs, rushed it, got them getting ducks out of the water, it's all turned to custard, and it's taken you 2 years or 3 years to get to a point that you realize you've totally ruined that dog. And you've got to start all over again. And then you do it another time and you like do a little bit and it goes not too bad and you almost get there. But then by the end of the first season, you're sort of like, oh, I should have done a few other things and now I've created a few issues, so I'll spend the rest of this year trying to fix that. And then you sort of start doing it kind of properly the dog's second season when it's like 2 or 2.5 years old. And then it's sort of better, but it's sort of hard. And now you're thinking, man, if I had to just like skip the last season and done everything properly, this season would have been better. But now I'm sort of trying to do it, but I'm also trying to fix some of the problems that I created last season by trying all that stuff with the dog before it was sort of ready for it. And like now you're like 5 years and 2 dogs and into it. And then when you really work it all out and just go, and it's, you're sort of where I was like a few years ago or a good couple of years ago, and I was wrapping my head around like the bird dog training and that, and I was talking to that other guy that had been like training trial dogs and stuff, and I said to him on the phone, super honest conversation, and I was like, man, I reckon it's about 2 years. He was like, yeah, I reckon it is too. Yep. Like that's what it is, man. You know, and again, don't get me wrong, you can 100% have them pretty good by 12 months old, but then you've got to ask yourself, like, how much is it worth, like, pushing the issue and wringing the sponge out, and, like, how hard do you want to push, and how much is it worth it, versus just being able to totally relax and just go, instead of, like, pushing and rushing and hoping and trying so hard, just going, what about just completely relaxing and going and knowing you've got the system that'll work and it's gonna work, and giving yourself plenty of time and just going, oh, I've got 2 years to like work with this dog and train it properly. And like, it's actually kind of fun training it, especially when you're not rushing and stressing out and stuff. And just doing that and just enjoying it and having plenty of time and knowing that you've got enough time to do it all properly, and just being more in that mindset of like, this dog's going to be good, man. And this is going to be fun. That's where I'm at with it now, you know? And that's a note that I've got further down here. Like, if I was training my own dog to be a versatile deer dog and a bird dog, let's say I was getting a Labrador and I was going to use a Labrador as a deer dog, which I've done before. A strong-eyed heading dog's better. A really good pointer that's well trained, that you've taken your time with, is better, but a Labrador's pretty freaking good too. I'd do the deer dog training blue. Like, if I was getting a dog to train for myself to be a deer dog and a bird dog, personally, if I could only have one dog to be a deer dog and a duck dog, for me, I'd get a Labrador. And if I was training it and no one was ever going to see that dog work, I was never going to film anything, I was never going to do a podcast, it was just literally 100% a dog that I was training for myself, to hunt with myself, and no one was ever going to see that dog, I'd take 2 years to do it. And I'd do the training that's in the deer dog training blueprint, and then I'd do the training that's in the bird dog training boot camp, and it would take 2 years. And I'd do the deer dog training blueprint first. And at the end of that, I'd have all of my foundation of my stop, go, come, turn. I'd actually have a lot of my scent work and stuff too, but I've got all the tools that I need to start the retrieve. There's a really interesting quote in the start of, I'm trying to remember, it's a bird dog training book called The Wild, I don't know if it's Wild Rose Way or the Wilder Rose Way. I think it's spelled WILDER Rose, ROSE. Let me do a quick Google search on this, give you the book and who wrote it and stuff. Wilder Rose Dog Training. It's a really good gun dog training book. Yeah. Oh, Wild Rose Way. I don't know why I thought it was that. Sporting dog and retriever training. The Wild Rose Way. Raising a gentleman's gun dog for home and field. Written by Mike Stewart. Created by Mike Stewart of Wild Rose Kennels, the Wild Rose Way is a unique low-force positive training method that is field-proven for upland and waterfowl gun dogs. Goes on and on. I thought it was written by one guy. The foreword, made by Orvis Universe. The foreword was written by someone that unless I'm wrong, I think it was though, the foreword was written by someone else that wasn't the trainer. Wild Rose Training Co. Anyway, the quote was, he was in the UK. I think this was someone from Orvis. What's Orvis? Orvis is an American family-owned retail and mail-order business specializing in fly fishing, hunting, and sporting goods. And I think he was something to do, and I think they make books and videos and all sorts of stuff, and this guy was from Orvis, and he was writing in this book. But he was in the UK, and he was at a place, where they do a lot of bird shooting and gun dog training and all of that. And a guy was there that was one of the main trainers for the Queen of England. The Queen of England used to have gun dogs and that. And that's really, the like the motherland of a lot of gun dogs and gun dog training is UK and England and in the bigger states and all of that, And this is a bit, I'm getting somewhere with this, guys. Talking about timing of training a bird dog. And this guy said to the head trainer for the Queen of England, what age do you start training your bird dogs? And he said, about 10 months. And I remember the quote. It said, I should have the book in front of me while I'm doing this. It said, he said, that is making haste slowly. And that's exactly what it is, man. It's making haste slowly. And because it all depends on what outcome you're actually aiming for, right? Because if it's just getting a duck out of the water, that's easy, and kid can do that with a free Labrador from the pound. But to have a really well-trained dog, really well-trained, steady gun dog that has good back and sides and crosses and all of that, and I'm not even talking a trial winner, just a good gun dog that is only going to get better and better, and you're not starting it off too young and it's only sort of easy to handle because it's not old enough to be confident enough yet, and it's not going to go through that big bell curve of like being real good and then being a pain in the ass and then getting to the point where you don't even want to take it hunting anymore. I'm talking like you've done everything properly. You're actually starting it off at the point it starts off really good and it only gets better from there. 2 years old is making haste slowly, like starting off. So the dog starts off and its first retrieves is delivered back to hand and it knows what a dog blind is. It's steady to the shot. It's steady to birds coming in, back and sides and crosses and blinds and or multiples and all of that. Like it's good. 2 years is making haste slowly, you know, and it like, as far as like the credibility of, isn't who said that and isn't that crazy and what the trainer of the Queen's dogs and passing, hey, when do you start your dogs off? 10 months old. Right, I got it. I start the basics from day one, 8 weeks old. But it's very basics, just gently building patterns and train them right through that whole first year. So I'm saying at 10 months old, that dog's got stop, go, come, recall, range, scent work. It's been introduced to the gun, water, obstacles, truck. Like it's basically a finished deer dog by 12, 15 months old. And then I'll layer my retrieving work on top of that. So who knows what the exact context of, when do you start your dogs off? When do you start training your dogs? He might be meaning he starts running retrieves at 10 months old, but the dog's actually got a lot of basics at that point, or I don't know exactly what it lacks context, right? But I think it's the way to go, man. That's all I can really say, right? Or ever do. It's just like, how would I do it? That's exactly how I'd do it. Like whether I'm making a video series and trying to help as many people as possible to do it, or whether I'm going to train my own dog and no one's ever going to see it. Like, obviously that's what all it can ever be, right? Is I would only ever put in a video series and that I'm going to share with other people how I would want to do it, and I'd never share anything that I wouldn't want to do myself, you know, and even 10 years later and upon heaps of reflection, like that's exactly how I do it. I follow the deer dog training blueprint and then I follow the bird dog training boot camp. Yeah. I had a hard time early on. This is going back to that conversation 10 years ago. People saying, like, people thought I was crazy for saying that hey guys, I reckon we should actually train our dogs. And people were like, what? What are you talking about? You're crazy. But I had a hard time early on because no one even wanted to wait until 8 months old. People thought I was crazy for saying you needed to train a dog and how much it's changed now. It's kind of crazy how much it's changed. A lot of people get it. A lot of people get it now. This is a really big kicker note too, guys. This is something I've worked out just in the last year or two, especially the last year. And this is not to knock anyone that asks questions in a circle or wants to do one-on-ones, or sometimes I do video. I do Zoom one-on-ones too, just do like a Zoom consult with people and stuff like that. And again, like, I never knock anyone for asking questions or making mistakes or anything. Like, I made all of the crazy mistakes way too many times and all of that sort of stuff. But like, talking about how much it's changed now, and that a lot of people get it now. A lot of people get it and just train their dog and start their dog, train a GSP on the blueprint, and don't start it till it's 15 or 18 months old, and they go good, and they go good, and the dog starts good at 15 or 18 months old. It's better by the time it's 2 years old. It's cranking by 3, and then by 4 or 5 years old, they're still messaging me going, "Oh my God, man, you should have seen my dog on the weekend. It's just insane how good he is." And they just get better and better. There's lots of people out there doing that, eh? There's lots of people with really, really good dogs that have followed the Deer Dog Training Blueprint. And most of the people that do the best with the blueprint and my videos, I never hear from them. They never asked a question in the inner circle. They never sent me heaps of messages asking heaps of questions. They just followed it, man. Because that's the main thing. Like, I think a lot of them listen to the podcast a lot. A lot of people that have done really well listen to the podcast right from the start of the podcast. Those first like 30 odd big game indicating dogs Q&As were pretty solid. Like, we started going around in circles a while ago. That's why I had a break, and that's why I haven't really done one for quite a while, because it was just like different angles on the same question, or getting super random and obscure and stuff. Those first 30 odd Q&As that are free on my podcast, most of it's like answering the same. There's about 10 or 12 questions per podcast and 30 odd podcasts. So like 300 odd questions answered. Most of those 300 questions are on like the same 10 or 12 or 18 subjects, and what is it, like 90 or 100 hours of me talking about dog training. Just sort of insane. It's like 2 weeks of me talking, 2 full-time work weeks of 2.5 or 3. But people that just got the blueprint, super committed, listened to all of those and just followed it and took their time and just kept the main thing, which is the blueprint and the training and that core stuff, and then filled in all the gaps and just like studied and did their homework with the podcasts, which the podcast really just fill in all the gaps and help bring someone that's training their first dog up to the point where of all of the little nitty gritty, super experienced sort of stuff. And, most of the people that do the best, I never hear from them. Like, people that just start tagging or sending messages and photos of shooting deer and little clips and stuff, and and then they just keep shooting deer and keep sending clips and showing clips and saying the dog's just getting better and better, man. Oh my God, he's such a weapon. I never heard from most of those guys while they were training the dog until they just started shooting deer, and all they send me is just like photos of dead deer and stuff. So, and that's not to say like don't ask questions. And I'm not saying someone that asks questions isn't doing it properly. I'm not saying that at all. There's been plenty of people that have also asked lots of questions and been super active in the inner circle and stuff that have also trained really good dogs as well. But there's definitely a bit of a trend of people that ask lots of questions and still don't seem to get there. So it's like, I don't know what's going on there, but sometimes it seems like someone's spending more time asking questions and then they are actually watching the blueprint and focusing on it and doing it properly and doing enough of it. That's like, keep the main thing, man. Make sure and there's no substitute for that. Make sure you're doing the blueprint properly and all of the training into a high level, and that is what will get you there. The podcast is really good, those first 30 odd episodes. And then asking questions and asking questions and problem solving in the inner circle and stuff is really good too. That's the note. Most people that do the best, I never even hear from them until they're just slaying deer. and they're sending me messages like, holy shit, my dog's good. Don't get distracted. The blueprint is the main thing. Keep the main thing. It's not fun to watch. It's not meant to be. It's not a Mr. Beast video, It's not that. Like, and I reckon that's something I've noticed over the last few years, like people's attention span. And like, there's so much good content out there now. And the blueprint isn't like scrolling Instagram reels or TikToks or super fast-paced, super entertaining, fast-paced YouTube video, viral YouTube videos. It's like going to school, man. It's like doing a freaking course or something, It's not meant to be fun. It's probably not fun. It's probably pretty hard work. It's probably pretty heavy weighting, but it is what it is, It's super dense information. Like, a lot of people say they have to rewatch it and take notes and things like that. Take notes and watch it over and over and really break it down and really get into it. That's what the people that do really well with it, man. They're not watching it. They're not half watching it while scrolling on the phone, while talking to their mate, while doing 5 things, and then like getting up at the end. I think I got it. Yeah, I'll go and try anyway. They're like locked in a room, man, watching it properly over and over and nerding out on it and watching exactly what I'm doing and going out and doing exactly that and really getting into it and doing it, So again, my notes. So slow down, spend more time training and really watching the blueprint. And again, I'm not saying that any particular person isn't doing that. And there's plenty of times that someone asks a question and I say, go back and rewatch it or watch ahead, and they're like, bro, I've watched it like 10 times and I'm trying really hard. I'm just trying to ask a question. And it's totally cool. Ask away. You can't half watch it and half follow it and have it work. That's all. That's old mate. That's like comes back after 3 months on the 1,500 calorie, 10,000 step, 5 weight sessions a week, and they're like, man, I'm like just putting on fat and like no muscle, and I weigh more and I'm like weaker. I've been eating a few donuts and not doing the steps and not lifting the weights, Like, you gotta do it, bro. You're on it. You've got to do it. You really do. For me, that's like not doing enough steps and having a few too many beersies. Yeah, you can't half watch it and half follow it. Talk about some one-on-ones. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, just one-on-ones. It's the same thing, like people saying, man, I followed it. I'm trying really hard. I'm doing everything perfect. And they turn up to a one-on-one and they don't ever stop drill. And then I'm like, okay, well, we better do some stop drills or whatever. And then it goes from, I'm doing it all perfectly. I'm following it. And the more we talk and then like an hour and a half into the one-on-one, they're like, there was actually this one time that like, oh no, it was actually happened twice. Oh, actually it was 3 times. Yeah, no, now that you say it, yeah, the dog chased a rabbit like 3 times. There was that time that we went away for like 4 months and then the dog was with my sister and God knows what she done with it. And actually I didn't get the blueprint until the dog was 4 months old, and then we didn't really train it. My missus does a heap of crazy stuff with it. I don't really do it properly. Heaps of bad stuff's happen, and it's like, okay. And we've gone from, honestly, bro, I've followed it to the T to, and it's all good. And we'll do the one-on-one and I'll show you the stuff and we'll make a plan and we'll get you back on track. But, you know, whether you're starting out halfway through, got off track and trying to get back on track, whatever it is, it's the same as the frickin' 1,500 calories, 10,000 steps and lifting weight. There's only one thing that's going to do it, and that's the training and doing it properly. These are some really good points, guys. Listen to this. Patience. Let the dog age. Train and follow the program. Train and follow the program. Patience. Let the dog age. Rinse and repeat until you've got it to a very, very high level. Watch that video, A Walk with Print, and ask yourself if you can do that with your dog. Hunting with the long line. There's a part, I can't remember if it's in part 11 or 12. If you're following the blueprint, you're going to do it all properly. You need to watch both anyway. But about putting the long line on the dog, I'll show you how I do it with Print. Put the long line on him, have him dragging the long line. I use a long line quite a bit with Miko. That's probably another thing I would change in the blueprint. It's essentially all the exact same stuff. Same when I said earlier that I wouldn't change anything. Wouldn't change anything about the training and the order and the amount of training and the seriousness and all of that. If anything, I'd just say take your time even more and do more. Another thing I would do and change is I would take so much emphasis away from having to get the dog 100% off the long line before you start hunting. And I would say just start the dog dragging a long line. And we use a long line basically all the way through the whole blueprint. It's like that's one part of it, is that it's like a master class in using a long line for dog training. And a long line is like a super fundamental tool that's been used for hundreds of years by farmers and bird dog trainers. It's like a super rock solid fundamental tool of dog training. Super important. Like I can't do what I do without a long line. And I would never want to either. And a huge part of my training in the blueprint and everything is like perfecting the use of the long line. And like we really have. And if anything, I've probably taken it. I've taken it further than what is even in the blueprint. and adapted it a little bit, actually. There's a big cockroach that was on my belt. I'm in the shed here. Do I have a long line on me? And my hunting belt? Yep. So this is the stuff I'm using at the moment. I actually get this from Z-Packs. And I actually saw it on the same sort of string in a service station the other day. Not for sale, but like, you know, the big like Perspex screens that really come into vogue during the old COVID. What's this stuff called? Like, so I'll hold this up. This is like a really light, slippery string that I use as a long line on Miko when she's hunting. And I actually don't have it as a slip knot around her neck. I have a really nice collar on her, and I just tie it to the collar. So she's got a very light, slippery, long line dragging behind her, hanging off her collar. And like I would still take the training to the point that I do in the blueprint. I wouldn't use the long line as a crutch to like start hunting the dog sooner. But I'd take the training to the same point. I would also take the training right through to the point where I've got it all off the long line as well. And I can actually hunt the dog off the long line. And then I'd put a long line on it and start it on the long line. Or start it off the long line and do bits and pieces of both with the long line and without a long line. But I've actually got the long line to the point now where, like, while I'm deer stalking, even with the fully trained dog that didn't even need the long line, I'd probably just rather have it on anyway. Because when the dog's all sneaking in perfectly and stuff, I can just stand on it without saying anything and without the dog having a look back. I can talk to the dog less, put less pressure on the dog to look back to me. And I can stand on the long line it's like being able to reach out and touch the dog from 7 meters away. Like tap it on the shoulder and say, hey, just wait, stop. You know, and I'm connected to the dog, but I'm not holding on to it. The dog's just dragging it. Honestly, guys, like, and talking about making hay slowly, for a lot of people that and I'm one of them now that I'm not full-time hunting in that. I'm actually doing bugger all hunting. For a lot of people that don't hunt much and they haven't trained a heap of dogs, and you know, you are in that position where you're taking the dog out and it's a little bit of a handful. Man, it's just like, it makes it so much easier. And it's fun. I actually got this off. There was a few people early on in the blueprint that they just started doing that themselves. And like I started print off the long line in the blueprint, you know, and he was going bloody good off the long line too. But then, yeah, there was a couple of people that were shooting heaps of deer going really well. And they were sending me photos, and there was always a long line. I was like, what? You just always got, what are you doing with a long line? And they were like, this is how I do it, man. It's good. They're like, it's easier. I'd just rather leave it on. And I was like, okay. And then with me, I did it a little bit with print. If he was pushing it a little bit too hard to handle, I just put a long line on him and it'd just be super easy. I sort of did the same thing with Miko. And And now, with this sort of string, that's super light and slippery, and it doesn't absorb water, and it doesn't get heavy, and it's super slippery and quiet through the bush and stuff. And now I just put it on a collar, so I don't have to worry about it being hard on the dog's neck with the slip knot. I don't have to worry about a thin string against the dog's neck. Big comfy collar, super light, slippery long line. And the dogs are just way easier on it, and I've got that silent communication and reach out and touch them from 5 meters away and that. So hunting with the long line on, man, highly recommend that. And again, like if I was training and hunting and no one was going to see it like that, I'd do that a lot more. It's actually the easier, it's actually easier for you, easier on the dog, easier on everything. And if for whatever reason you really do want to get them off the long line too, if they're pushing it and they're hard to handle, probably the fastest and easiest way to get them to the point where they are easier to handle off the long line is if they're being difficult, put a long line on them and stop being in that situation where you're battling, Let me just tell you exactly what this long line is. Z-Packs. I got it off Z-Packs, which is it's crazy expensive. It's not like super insanely expensive, obviously, but it's expensive for string versus getting the old 30 meters of the cheap stuff for $12 from Mitre 10 or whatever it is. Accessories. So Z-Packs, guys, it's literally ZPACKS.com. Z-Packs, they do ultralight camping stuff. And I'm in their accessories, and I'm going, this is it, cord and hardware. And this is their Z-Line slick cord. zpacks.com, Z-Line slick cord. And I'm pretty sure this stuff I've got is 2mm Z-Line slick cord. And it's $14.95 US for 50 feet of it. So what's 50 feet is about 50 feet is 15 meters. Yeah, so in New Zealand dollars, it's about 25 odd bucks for 15 meters of 2mm string. So it's bloody expensive. Z-Packs does again ultralight backpacking gear, and they sell ultralight tarpaulins. Actually, I use a black one. They've got a blaze orange long slick cord like this too. That would actually be good because then it'd be more visible. You'd be able to see it on the ground and avoid standing on it, and you'd be able to see when your dog goes behind a bush in front of you, there'd be a blaze orange string pointing at it. But yeah, so it's $25 or 15 meters of string is pretty crazy. But yeah, this is and I got it because I've got a couple of their tarpaulins and tents and stuff, and their Z-Line slick line is a very lightweight, very strong, high quality string to be used for stringing up your tarps and stuff. If you're super nerding out on your lightweight camping gear, it is bloody good. All this stuff is really good, but it ain't cheap. And yeah, when I ordered one of their tarps, and I just went a bit nuts and just added a whole bunch of random stuff to my cart, including some of their flash string and stuff. Actually, their 1.3 millimeter Z-line cord, their yellow Z-line cord, it's actually epic stuff for setting up your tarps and that. And they've got their Z-line cord and their little line lock V-guide guy line adjuster. Having that 1.3 mil Z-line cord and their little adjuster things, it's ultra light, like just adds nothing to your pack, and you can set up all your tarps and adjust the tightness of them without having to untie knots and stuff. It's really good stuff. But let's not tangent too much. 2 mil Z-line slick cord tied to a collar. Maybe someone listening to this podcast can tell us what that stuff is. What does it say about it? Breaking strength over 200 pound. This cord is made of solid braided 100% UHMWPE fiber with no sheath. It is smooth and slick and allows it to slide over. It says, keep your delicious trail food out of the hands of those hungry bears. This cord is made out of that flash fiber. It is smooth and slick, which allows it to slide over branches easy, perfect for bear bagging. It's easy to grab a hold of, and it's tangle resistant. It's bright and doesn't grip as well as the sheathed Z-line. So make sure, you get it's a slick cord, a Z-line slick cord. But braided, I'm just wondering if we can find it somewhere else, Yeah, UHMWPE rope. Yep, Burns Co. has got it. Trade me 20 meters. Yeah, see, here's 4 millimeters, but it's still $60 for 20 meters. There's 3 millimeters, $50 for 20 meters. So it's on Trade Me and stuff too. So it's UHMWPE rope. Seems a little bit over the top. 2 millimeter. Yep, looks like Burns Co.'s got it. It might be Dyneema. Dyneema rope. I'll have to get back to you on this, but it looks like it might be Dyneema, and Burns Co.'s got it for $4 a meter for 2 mil. So what's that? $4 a meter. What did I say? $25 for 15. $15 times 4. Yeah, so Z-Packs isn't even that expensive, guys. It just looks like that stuff's like stupid expensive. It's like some flash Dyneema stuff, like those expensive ultra weight tarps. So anyway, so it sounds like just jumping on Z-Pack. And the other thing is shipping is crazy on Z-Packs. I'll just throw some in my cart real quick here. Add to cart. Proceed to checkout. Yeah, that's the problem. Shipping's $35. So far out. That's US too. Yeah, so it's like $60 US. So 30. So shipping's like $50 US, which I don't know why Z-Packs is that much, but let's go like 4 packs of it and see how much shipping goes up. Yeah, nah. So with 4 packs of it, shipping still the same. So maybe we could team a few people in that's blueprint followers in the inner circle want to get some of that stuff. Maybe we do a couple of bulk orders of it or something. You get 2, because I just added like 4 lots to the cart and shipping still $35. So, yeah, and it turns up pretty quick actually. That's fast worldwide shipping from shipping that string from the States to New Zealand. So, yeah, maybe we could do that. I'll put a post up in the inner circle and order a heap of that stuff in. But what's that? How much was that stuff? Yeah, 14, so about 25 US dollars. It's about $12 a long line, guys. You know, and I've done a lot of hunting with a couple of these, and I also use it for setting up my tarps and stuff. And it's pretty epic string. Who would have thought, right? Technology, even strings getting better. But yeah. So, and that's actually another thing I'd have to do some experimenting with, but I think I'd probably go to just a long line on the collar, like potentially right from a putt. It's not really about the pressure and the choking, It's all about the timing and measure and reading and stuff. And I think I could train a dog on a long line without the slip factor of it, and just having a long line on a normal collar, and it would work fine. But 100%, once the dog's fully trained, you don't need a slip lead around its neck. You can just have it tied onto the collar, and having the dog dragging a light long line like that, it's good, man. I actually like it, I actually like it. Yeah, you have to step over it a little bit. Honestly, for me, after years of training dogs with long lines, I'm so used to walking behind a dog with a long line that I like automatically just don't step on it. Yeah, you have to think about it, but by the time you're like stalking, and once you're in that to that point where you're like watching your dog and trying to keep the dog going slow, super slow, and you want the dog to go slow, and you're stalking and looking for a deer and trying to go slowly and watching where you're placing your foot because you're stalking and all of that. For me, maybe a little bit, but I don't find it that much of a problem, and like for how much the dog adds to the hunt and helps me to find and shoot deer, and then you factor in how much easier it is having that long line close by that you can stand on and control the dog silently. It's like having to avoid the long line and not stand on it when you don't want to. I understand that it might seem difficult for some people, and tangles, I've had it particularly with different string and worse string, and also like with a dog that's real messy all over the place, maybe more tangles, but with a dog that's nice and smooth and stays in front and just walks clean lines and all tidy in that, I don't have many tangles. Like I definitely won't say I don't have any. I have the occasional small tangle, but the amount of work that it takes to untangle it once or twice in a full day of hunting, to be able to have the dog just hunting perfectly and to be able to be connected to it, and how easy it makes it and how nice it makes it and how good the dog goes and how useful the dog is, versus the tiny bit of work having it dragging the long line. I'll take the long line, And final point on this, like having a dog that isn't trained to a very high level, dragging a long line through the bush can be an absolute nightmare, But by the time the dog's pretty much ready to hunt off the long line anyway, and it's doing that compass bearing off the front of you through the bush, and it's hunting at a nice range, and it's tracking nicely, and it's walking a nice clean line, and it's easy to handle, and it's not going backwards and forwards and around and making a big mess. It's just cruising, and it stops when you stop, and it goes when you go, and you can direct it, and it's smooth. It's easy. With a dog that's a mess and all that, you can't take a long line into the bush to train the dog while you're hunting. That's a nightmare. Having a dog that's trained to an extremely high level, that's had a long line on it tons, and if you're someone that's had a long line on that dog a lot, and you've done as much training as you should have, and you've got that dog to the point ages ago in training, so you're doing the last few months of your training without hardly ever touching the long line. It's just there to stand on occasionally, and just so the dog still knows it's on it. So like having a long line on a dog that's fully trained and that can hunt off the long line, but when you put the long line on it, it just makes things easier. That's easier. But having a long line on a dog that isn't at that point, having a long line on a dog in the bush while you're trying to hunt when the dog's not up to a good enough level to make that easy and good, sucks. You know what I mean, eh? I hope that makes sense. I'm sure it does. Hunting with a long line. Back to my notes. Hunting with a long line. Use a collar with a long line. We've perfected the use of the long line. How good the long line is. It's different not hunting full time. That's another thing that I'll admit too, that my perspective's changed on. I always knew, and look, I've been in that position way before making the blueprint, right? Like with Tessa. I had Tessa. I was living in the bush full time when I got Tessa, and I got her to a fully trained deer dog, and we were living in the bush shooting deer all the time. And I had her full time in the bush. And then I stopped working full time in the bush, and there was periods of months and years where we hardly did any hunting, and then we'd go back hunting again, and we could go for a hunt without a long line, shoot deer, all off the long line. She was easy to handle, all of that, okay? But then again, she was a little bit of an exception too, and I'd spent a huge amount of time with her in the bush before that, right? Like living in the bush with her. So, and she was a very nice, easy to handle, biddable dog. And by the time I was doing that, and I didn't hunt with her for ages, and then I did go back in after not doing it full time and stuff, she was like 6 then. So she was in her absolute prime and was very nice to handle. And we spent a ton of time together. Even if we weren't hunting, she was always with me, and that counts for a lot too. So I was always handling her nicely and properly and all of that. But it is a bit different not hunting. It's very different not hunting full time. And the difference is, that's probably the main difference, guys, is like, and that's about all it is when you're hunting full time, you can get them going real nice off the long line much easier. If you're not hunting full time, it's harder to get them going real good off the long line. And I had a bit of a blind spot with that. I was probably a little bit overconfident with, hey, we can get these dogs going real good off the long line, because I always had. I'd always done that, and I'd done it with dogs that had big gaps, not in the bush and stuff as well, but at the same time I'd sort of always been so full time and spending so much time in the bush and time with the dog and like single and not having kids and all of that, and like basically me always been in the super ideal situation. I always had very nice dogs too, always good at like picking a good dog, nice biddable dog, spending tons of time with it. So again, like, having said that too, looking back, even when I was full-time hunting, I would have been better off having the long line on my dog more than I did in the bush. Instead of being so hell-bent and like, this dog's got to be like perfect off lead. It's got to be perfect off the long line, and I'd train like crazy and handle the dog heaps in the bush, and would have been better off just blimmin' having a light long line on a collar and just like relaxing. And it's easier, less issues, easier on me, it's easier on the dog, and it's probably the best way it's probably the best way to get the dog real good off the long line is to put a long line on it when it's not being good off the long line, But then you get to the point where it's like, I'd almost just leave the long line on it. That's what I'm saying. That's probably the other main change. If I made the blueprint again, or when I train another dog, I just won't be as hell bent as like getting it off the long line and keeping it on the long line. I just start hunting, dragging a long line tied to a collar, and it's a big difference going to the right string. And this new flash string makes a big difference, man, real big. It picks up less crap too and ties less knots. Like it's called slick cord. Sounds like Z-Pax has it for sliding over branches. That's what their bear bagging is. They because these bears, you can't have bears get into your food. So they get to camp, like sometimes cook dinner away from camp, and then put all their food in a bag and throw a string over a branch and lift their food way up in a tree, and then go and jump in their tent so they're not like sleeping next to a big lump of bear bait, But yeah, because it's so slippery, that especially the stuff that I used in the blueprint and that I used to use, that cheap blue stuff from Mitre 10, it frays, and then it gets all grippy, almost like Velcro, and it grabs onto stuff and loops around stuff and like starts dragging branches, and it's like making a zipping noise going over the leaves and stuff. It also absorbs water, so it gets heavier, which makes it louder. Whereas this stuff is bloody slippery as, doesn't absorb water and all that sort of stuff. Lasts quite bloody well too. Right. Training a deer dog to be a bird dog. I might take a quick break, fill up my water cup, and we'll come back and get into this one. Right, we're back. We better crack another coffee for this. We're on the black cold brew coffees. They're pretty good, actually. Training a deer dog to be a bird dog. Training a deer dog to be a bird dog too. Which is actually easier than training a bird dog, because once you've got a deer dog, a good one, you've got a lot of the foundations. You've got a lot of the foundations of a well-trained dog already. You've got a lot of the foundational stuff that you need in a gun dog. And you've got a lot of foundational stuff that helps you to start the retrieve and train the retrieve in a really nice, tidy, clean and structured way. And, you know, that's what I presume. And there's a little bit of presumption in it, but I'd have to read the foreword of that book again, but that was the main point, I think, and takeaway of it. Like, I'm sure that guy that said, you know, that trained the gun dogs for the Queen said, did some form of training and at least handling, right, and management with their dogs before they started training. But I think the main point was, you know, when do you start retriever training with your gun dogs? And he said, well, 10 months old. And the Orbis guy wrote, wow, okay, that is making haste slowly. That's one of but that's always been a known way that particularly UK and traditional English trainers have done it, that they don't even throw a retrieve with the dog until it has some serious age. And thought I understood for a long time that they often won't even throw a retrieve until they have a lot of the basics sorted anyway. I can't remember ever actually explicitly reading or hearing or learning that that's exactly how they did it, that they got there. I've definitely heard that they get a lot of the basic training done first and then they start the retrieve work. And even before I read that in that Wild Rose book, I knew that some of the English trainers don't even start throwing retrieves until the dog's like 12 months old. And when I heard that, I was already doing my training system where I was starting right with deer dogs, where I was starting right from a pup. And I had dogs with like automatic stop to the shot, stop to it. Like, and when I say stop, I mean stop. And stop means stop and stay stopped until told to go, with dogs barking around you, firing guns, deer running away, like whatever crazy high distraction stop at 10 months old, to like a quiet hiss or a hand signal, and commands and hand signals at distance, and like very high level of control. Stop, go, come, turn, up, down, you know, pretty much a finished deer dog at 10 months old. And then I heard apparently some of the best gun dog trainers in England don't even throw a retrieve until they have all their basics sorted and the dog's like 10 or 12 months old. And then I thought about it and I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense, because then you just train a hold. I'm getting into basically the start of the deer dog training boot camp. So the guy actually asked the question, can you train a deer dog to be a bird dog, and how do you do that? And he doesn't even seem to be aware that I spent most of the last 3 years making a bird dog training series. It's probably mainly my fault because I've barely advertised it or talked about it or even made a proper trailer for it. But there's just a massive series with like, it's bigger than the deer dog training blueprint. It's got like, I think it's 64 videos. It might, something like that. Massive series, bigger than the Deer Dog Training Blueprint, and it's designed to take 12 months to finish, to follow. And it's designed to start after you've finished the Deer Dog Training Blueprint, or if you have a dog with a good stop, go, and come command. You need a dog that's got a good stop, go, and come command. There's actually I don't know, I might have taken it off the podcast, but I think it's still up there somewhere. But one of the first videos in the Bird Dog Training Bootcamp is a 1 hour podcast. I think it's an hour or two. Is a massive podcast talking about all of the ins and outs of integrating the two and what you need to start training in the Bird Dog Training Bootcamp. So just to be 100% clear, the Bird Dog Training Bootcamp is an online video course on how to train a bird dog. And it's like 12 months of training. It's on my website, paulmichaelscourses.com. paulmichaelscourses.com. If you're listening to this or watching this, there'll probably be a link to that somewhere. But just type into the search bar paulmichaelscourses.com and you go to a page with a whole bunch of info on the Bird Dog Bootcamp, and you can sign up there. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, like all of my video series and all of that. Massive big video series on how to train a bird dog. And this guy's followed the blueprint, and that series is designed to follow after you've finished the Deer Dog Training Blueprint, and he's just finished training the Deer Dog Training Blueprint, so he's ready to start the Bird Dog Training Bootcamp if that's what he wants to do. And it's designed so it's designed to not jeopardize any of your deer dog training or deer dog hunting and deer dog work. And that's all part of like not throwing retrieves until the dog's got all your foundation right. And then this is what I realized, like, and this is after mucking around, having bird dogs since I was like 11, literally. I had my first bird dog when I was about, I grew up around I was born on a farm where my dad had bird dogs before I was born. So hang on, my chair's on on a cable. So yeah, I grew up right from a baby on a farm with bird dogs around it. And some of my earliest childhood memories has been taken down to the I don't know how old I was, like 3, and watching my dad and his friends shoot ducks and Labradors retrieving birds. And then there's like Dad's Labrador used to just follow me around everywhere. And then I was shooting possums and rabbits and everything with slug guns with my dad's Labrador when I was like 7. And then I had other Labradors, and then I got a GSP, which didn't last long because made an absolute shambles out of it. That was one of my very early formative experiences with dogs. And then when I was about 14, I had a semi-automatic shotgun and I could shoot okay. And I got a Labrador, the free one, and was shooting ducks with it. And she was an okay dog, but then she had issues too, but, and then through with Tessa, I did a bit of retrieving stuff, and I've done it my whole life, thought about it a lot too. And that whole thing about not throwing a retrieve until you have the basics on a dog. And then if you understand what a proper hold is, what training a hold is and a trained hold, so training a dog to hold a dummy, a retrieving dummy, you know. And then a hold is like a sit command, where sit means sit until told to go. So a sit command needs a go command, because without it, it's not a sit. Without a go command, sit just means sit until you feel like moving, and then it's not a stop. So in a stop drill, the go command is just as important as the initial stop, because without the go, you don't have a stop. You get what I mean? A hold is exactly the same, and a hold is only a hold until and it means hold it until I take it off you, i.e. same thing, you give it to me. You hold it, you teach the dog to hold the dummy until you want to take it, and then when you want to take it, the dog's supposed to let it go. And it's supposed to hold it properly until you want it, so it doesn't drop it as you reach for it. It doesn't drop it before you reach for it. It doesn't pull away as you reach for it. It holds it, and the reason it is holding it for you, and it is holding it until you want it, and when you want it, it gives it to you, and it doesn't drop it in between. So the hold is actually the delivery. You can't have a delivery without a hold, and you can't have a hold without the delivery is the dog giving the dummy to you, and the dummy is obviously eventually going to be the bird. So the hold is the delivery is the hold. You can't have a delivery without the hold, and you can't have a hold without the delivery. The retrieve is really the hold, because the hold is the delivery. A retrieve is the delivery. A retrieve is the dog getting something and giving it to you. And the delivery is the hold, and the hold is delivery. So the hold is really the retrieve. And once you have a stop, go, come being recall, the dog come to you, and you teach a hold, so the dog knows how to hold the dummy, and it wants to hold it. It's a positive thing too. We teach the hold. And then, so the dog's holding it, and it knows the reason it's holding it is to give it to you. So we've never thrown a retrieve for the dog yet, but it's got a perfect stop, go, come, hold, and delivery. And you get the dog sitting, and it's like really good. It's not the person who's saying the on the diet and the workout but keeps putting on weight. You've actually done it. It's like you are trim, man. You've done the training to a very high level. You're really solid on it. It's like really good. And you've got the relationship and the dynamic with the dogs good too. The dog's all positive and looking to you and wanting to work and wanting to do stuff, and it's learning, and it's learning. Every training session is the dog is eager and happy and engaged and looking for the next thing to learn. You're chaining. You got your stop, go, come, hold, delivery. You've never thrown a retrieve for the dog. You tell the dog to sit and you throw the dummy for the first time. And the dog's just like looking at it like, what is going on here? I've never seen this. But that thing over there is meant to be in my mouth and I'm meant to be giving it to the boss. But it's on a stop because it's got to stop. So it's not going. So it's steady to the throw. But you've got to go. You've got your go command. And the dog is sitting on the stop, looking at its first retrieve ever, waiting for the go, wanting to go. You've got the go. And all it's thinking is that thing should be in my mouth. And I should be sitting next to the boss with that thing that's now over there in my mouth, waiting to give it to him. And you say, go, and they run out, pick it up, come running back. And they're sitting there waiting for you to take it back off them. And that's the first retrieve. That's how you do it. That's the whole, like, don't throw a retrieve until you got the basics and don't start till you're like 10 or 12 months old. That's the start of it. It's easy, and that's how you do it. That's the only way I'd ever do it ever again. There's other ways of doing it. And if you've seen that and that's how you think you want to do it and what I just explained doesn't make sense, then do it the other way. But that's the only way I'd ever do it, and I can only teach people how to do it the way I do it. And then so now you've got a dog that's got stop, go, come, basic retrieve, runs out, picks it up, brings it back, goes back on the stop. It's waiting for the next retrieve. And you can just repeat that. Easy, right? You've started with the perfect foundation. The dog his first retrieve was done perfectly. Let's remember the objective context of perfect. What do you mean perfect? When I say perfect, it's as perfect as a dog can do it for its first one. Steady to the throat, runs out, picks it up, brings it back. Yeah, there's going to be tiny mistakes, but you're off to an extremely good start. And the dog's first reference experience is just doing it correctly. Not doing a million throws right from a puppy and it's all crazy all over the place and you're trying to get, and spending the first year trying to get to where we start off after a year the first time. You understand? It's two ways to get into the same place. Try doing that with a pup. You know, some people throw retrieves right from a pup and they do it in a hallway and positive only and all of that stuff. And maybe if everything goes well after a year, the dog's doing steady to the throw, marked retrieves and bringing them back with a good delivery and no issues. Or you can just do everything that you need to do so when the dog's a year old, you can throw it and it does its first one good and then move forward from there. It's two like complete opposite ways to get to the same place. Then there's everything that you add on to that. Let me just quickly rattle off a few bits and pieces. The hold, the delivery, the basic retrieves, multiple retrieves, back and sides, blind retrieves, crosses, water retrieves, extending range, introduction of gunfire, introduction of decoy, blinds and hides, simulated hunting, starting a dog off, hunting the right way, running retrieves on real birds, managing and eliminating problems as they arrive. Like backsides, blinds, crosses, multiples. Like there's a lot of bits and pieces that you add on to that, and it's like the way I've done it in the Bird Dog Boot Camp is classic chaining. Classic chaining. And it's actually classic back chaining. I call it back chaining. And then there's a whole there's plenty of pretty in-depth ranting stuff in the Bird Dog Training Boot Camp, like going hardcore into that and demonstrating it and all of that sort of stuff. It's like 12 months of training. I think it's 64 videos. Should say here somewhere. Yeah, I think that was the end number, was 64 videos. There's over 60 videos in there. They probably average about half an hour each. Yeah, 25 minutes each. So there's like over 50 hours of videos, but it's designed to follow over a year, you know, so you're watching sort of a 25-minute video once a week and then working on that that's probably about what it is about a video a week, whereas a blueprint is sort of 12 part is 12 sort of 1 hour videos with a month's training in each 1 hour video. The Bird Dog Boot Camp is like 60 videos that you follow, and you follow that and you do that in about a year. So you watch about a video a week, roughly. About a video a week, 25-minute video, and most of those videos cover one pretty basic next step or next drill or next part that we're doing, and about a week's training. You know, so it's broke. There's more videos. There's more hours of video in it, but it's actually broken down and simplified more than the blueprint. It's not as dense. It's not cramming that as quite as much into a 1 hour thing that needs to carry you through a whole month. It's like, righto guys, pretty chill 25-minute video, quick talk about it, show you the drills, quick talk about it after, go do that for a few days, and I'll see you in the next video. That's pretty much it. It's actually a bit more chill, but it's super comprehensive, and it goes through like, there's a lot there, man. There's a lot there. Yeah, start off with the hold, and then your basic retrieves, multiples, a lot of stuff on blinds, range, straight lines, back and sides, multiple blinds, like heaps of different drills, and then into your water retrieves, and then crosses, and then, you know, getting the dog used to decoys and dog blinds and shooting. And I go over using dummy launches if you want to do that. Also how to do it without dummy launches. I barely use dummy launches in the series, and I don't think I'd really even use them that much myself, to be honest. Again, the thing about what would I do if like no one was watching, I doubt I'd even use one, you know. But yeah, training a deer dog to be a bird dog, you can 100% do it, man. And I've got a whole series on it. It was actually kind of crack up. This guy was like, man, the blueprint's been great, but I'd love to train it to get into birds now. What do you reckon? Can you do that? It's like, yeah, I just sort of spent 3 years making a whole series on it. You can totally do it. And that's how I reckon is the best way to do it, is like a whole year of the basics and don't even throw a retrieve. Again, you could 100% do it with bird dog in 18 or 20 months, with the whole bird dog season thing. And when I say like I've started dogs a lot at 8 months old on deer, 8 or 10 months old on deer. You can, it's pretty easy to have all of your training done, like you've gone through all of the steps and the dog's sort of got all of the tools by 8 or 10 months old. And that's relatively common, but how quality is it? That's where you could probably, that's when you can spend the next 6 or 8 months just taking your time and just rinse and repeat and let the dog chill out a bit more training, more longer walks, let more time go past and really just smooth everything out. In that period with the bird dog training, but if you've got all of that stop, go, come, all of that stuff pretty tidy with the dog, and you can put it on you could teach your hold, put it on a sit, throw a dummy, and have it steady to the throw. You can start doing, you can have, what I'm saying is you can have some overlap. So you still you followed the deer dog training blueprint, everything's solid. All your commands and everything is solid. You stop, go, come, control, all of that. But it's not quite like to that point where it's like the walk with print video yet. But you can start throwing some retrieves and get your basic retrieve sorted, and then start into some multiples and bits and pieces. By the way, too, actually, and that's the other thing about starting the retrieve process once you've got all of the basics on a dog, the foundational stuff, and starting it when it's older and it's steady to the throw on its first retrieve, it's even better on not jeopardizing your deer dog stuff, because it's steady to the throw. You're not doing a whole bunch of unsteady throws. So the dog's steady the whole time. So you're not jeopardizing your steadiness and deer dog stuff, And two, do the worst first. That's a bit of a principle. And two, getting all your steadiness and range and everything sorted so the dog's got that whole toolbox. Then when you put retrieving on top of that, even though retrieving is running out and it's a different thing and it's full on, if you've got the other stuff first and you continue that and you do your retrieving and bird dog stuff on top of that on the side, so it turns into two parallel lines, your deer dog stuff's here, your bird dog stuff's over here, it's two separate things. It's much easier way of doing it than doing that other style of bird dog training where you're doing all these unsteady throws as a pup and you're pulling it the other way around. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing that way of training, and there's some amazing trainers that do it that way, and it has its own set of benefits and stuff, and maybe that's a subject for another podcast or whatever. But some of the people that do that and other ways of training, I'm not really training a trialing dog, guys. I'm not. So again, it's all context, and being objective about it and understanding the context of it and all of that. And I'm not saying that my training isn't good for a trialing dog, but I haven't done trialing, and it's not a goal. I don't really want to either, and I'm not really interested in going down that road of being the person that's helping people to train trialing dogs. I just want to help people to train gun dogs. And I think for the, just personally, trialing's awesome. Get it, dude. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you and you think trialing's the best and you want to go and do that, go and do that. Stop, turn this podcast off, go and do it. I honestly don't care. But I think for some people, some ways, wanting to do the trialing, or me trying to design a system that like is going to work for trialing all of the time, and like keeping all those requirements. By the way, there's all sorts of different types of trialing and stuff. And there's all sorts of different kinds, and there's all sorts of different kinds of levels, and some like the amount of training that some of those guys do, and like consistently too, and how much training they have to do leading up to trialing, and how much maintenance is in it. And you know, I was researching some stuff a while ago that if we're talking about training a gun dog, right, and just people having a gun dog, which that's what I wanted, that's what I want, and that's the only, I can only help people to do what I want to do and what I'm doing anyway, which is just someone that wants to hunt and shoot ducks recreationally and for food and the culture of it and all of that and everything that it is. Trialing is, and I'm not saying the two don't go hand in hand, and most top trialing dogs will be a way better gun dog than your average gun dog that's not a trial dog, if you know what I mean. Like the amount of work and dedication and the level that they train to in some of these style of trialing, like it's freaking amazing. So a very high level, very, very good dogs, and any sort of like, trialing's bullshit, and a trialing dog's not a hunting dog, any of that sort of talk or attitude, that I'm not with that at all. And probably the main reason for me, one of the main problems for really trying to, what's the word? Basically trying to make a series that is going to work for your average person that wants to just train a good gun dog so they can have it and take it hunting, and like training that they can do themselves in a way that they can actually practically do with the training equipment and training areas and access to the areas and stuff that they can do. Some of these trialing people, especially overseas and in the States and stuff, these guys are like full time, and they're training in teams of multiple people on like big training. It's like almost like a farm that's designed for training, and they've got their different fields and different areas of different substrates and cover and grass. And like I was listening to one where a guy was going to be going to some big national trial somewhere, and he made a comment that, they told me that it was going to be long cover, so I was training, I'd like prepared my grounds and did all of my training in long cover all pre-season leading up to the trial, and I got there and it was short cover, and I was like, what? I've been training on the wrong type of cover. Like that's how specialized it is. And they've got man-made ponds with all the different shapes, and they're training with multiple people where one guy's down with the dog and another guy's like riding a side-by-side quad down the other end of this big 400 yards to the other end of the field and he's like launching birds and shooting shotguns, and like multiple trainers full time. You know? So you've got to keep it in context and really, and this is almost why I stopped for a while and had a break. Like, and like at the moment, the blueprint's there, the bird dog boot camp's there. But what I'm saying is like to really pass all of this stuff out and like I have, right? It's there. It's in the deer dog training blueprint. It's in the bird dog boot camp. Anyone can go and see it. You can sign up. There's a 30-day money back guarantee, so you can sign up and look at it and go, nah, this isn't what I want to sign up for, and flag it. Pretty much no one does that, by the way. Once they get in and start watching the series, they're into it and use it for quite a while and that. But as far as context goes, and you say, oh, I want to do it this way, and people are like, what about this and what about that? What about X, Y, and Z? What about my, but if I do it that way, then I'm not going to have my 400 meter dead straight blind back. Okay, you want a 400 meter blind back every single time, perfect straight line, never stopping, like swim through the edge of a pond to hold the straight line, jump in the fence, like never popping or stopping or pausing or veering. Like you want that 400 meter dead straight flat stick line, run until you smell duck, blind back. Okay, cool. Do you know what it takes to get that? And here's the craziest thing too. Do you know what it takes to maintain that? And here's the big kicker. This is where this big rant started. I was researching some stuff on that, on dog trialing and that, and how it works and how they think about it and do it and all of that. And, you know, one guy mentioned, like, they were like, well, yeah, I had this big trial coming up. And so I had to stop hunting my dog because we know that's no good for the trial. Because it's two different things. You know, certain trials, and again, the level they're taking these dogs to and the control that they have on them, way better than almost any good gun dog out there. This is actually my point. So much so that when they're trying to get those big, straight, long backs, which they need for these trials, certain trials, there's many different kinds of trials. When they just take the dog duck shooting, and now 90% of the birds are within 40 meters, because that's what it is when you're shooting ducks, is that's how far a shotgun kills stuff. And the dog does 20 retrieves in a morning, and most of them are probably dropping within, if you're shooting on maize stubble, most of those ducks are within 20 meters. Like 70% of them are within 20 meters, 30%, another 20 of that 30 are within 50, and there's 2 or 3 that sailed out and landed way out there, and a couple of walkers and things like that. Unless your shooting's an absolute shambles, and that's something that you need to fix before you even think about your dog. That's what's happening, right? And that's why they can't hunt the dog before the trial that's going to have the 400 meter straight blind back where the dog can't think about anything, and it's just got to run. If it stops and mucks around and starts hunting early, then and the next dog doesn't do that, then you lose. And they have to train for that. That's where they get the other guy at the end of the 400 yards away launching and shooting and all, like to get the dog to run those straight lines, which, by the way, is awesome. And every now and again, you actually want that. You get that big sailor that goes way out, and it's actually pretty epic to be able to handle a dog out to that range. But if you hunt the dog and it's just done like 30 retrieves within 20 meters, it's probably not going to do, it's going to stop and hunt short. And you're going to have to say back another 2 or 3 times, back, and he's going to run and then think about it and have a look around, back, and he's going to go again, and then back, and then he's going to get it. Oh, okay, that's right, yep, sweet, and then it's going to go back. But that's not going to win that mega grand champion national trial. You're supposed to say back, and it just goes. But when you're shooting, 30 ducks in the maize stubble, having a dog that's aiming 400 yards away every retrieve that's not what's happening. But amazing to be able to get the dog to do that when you want it to. So, like, again, context, and then how much work do you want to do, and then there's the poison bird. Getting the dog to run past the bird to go and pick up another one. Stuff like that. Leave one laying here to go get one further away and stuff like that. It just goes on and on and on, And then you've got to think about, well, how many people want to do that? How many people want that result? How much work does it take to get that? What do you need to get that as far as equipment, specialized training areas, frequency of training? Now you need multiple people to train that way. So you've got to strike some sort of a balance. And that's another part of like the bird dog training boot camp. You can do I did the whole thing on my own. You can do it all on your own. You can do it all on your own pretty much with a piece of string, 3 or 4 dummies, a wooden clapper, preferably a vest that your dummies go in the back or in your big pockets in the front. That's blooming handy. That's about it. It's like string, dummies, and I did a little bit of it on private land and a mate's farm and a few bits and pieces, but in the end I ended up doing 90% of it on just public sports grounds, public rugby fields and parks, public local lakes and rivers and stuff. Super low key. Just point being is striking that balance between a really good bird dog and something that almost anyone can do, and striking that balance between that, and that's one thing that as I researched it and thought about it and made the series, and that was one of the biggest things that it's taken me a long time to process it and work through it, and just it has. Yeah, and like more what to say about it and how to present it and that. But that's really it, striking that balance of where it's the training is doable and it's not exorbitant, where it's not. So like the juice is worth the squeeze, basically. It's like, yeah, and I just think, and that's it. Like, even when I first started making it and posting about it and stuff, and people would message, oh, what about this? Or are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And things like, I've seen these guys doing X, Y, and Z. Are you going to do that? Like, show us how to do this. And it's like, show us how to do it so the dog runs past the one that you don't want to get, basically runs past the retrieve to go get another one, or a 300-meter blind back every single time without even stopping to think about it. And it's like, yeah, you've got to, it's cool to want to do that, but yeah, you've got to realize what it's going to take to get there, and again, it's like the fitness analogy thing. Like, what does Ronnie Coleman say? Everyone wants to be a bodybuilder, but no one wants to lift these heavy ass weights. And it's like, yeah, most guys would like to be sort of in pretty good shape, and like most guys probably wouldn't want to look like Ronnie Coleman at his peak, like super crazy jack, can barely even walk properly with that much muscle. Most people would probably like to be in pretty damn good shape, like kind of jacked, But in reality, most people, if they knew how much work it took to get that, they'd just be like, you know what, I don't actually want to be that strong, but what's the balance of a good bit of fitness and work that I can do to be in decent shape that I am actually happy with, that works really well, but the work to get there isn't so difficult and out of control that it makes it that it's not even worth doing. It's like the work offsets the reward, And there's the 80-20 rule. And that's strong in the bird dog thing. Whereas like 20% of the work gets you 80% of the result. And to get that last 20% of the result takes another 80% of work. And the other thing is maintaining it. It's like, and the fitness analogy is there too, like to build up strength till you can lift your 1 rep max deadlift or whatever it is. It's like a big cycle of building up, training and rest and train and rest and train and rest and train and rest to get up to your max. And like, you're pretty buggered at the end of that, and you got your max, and then you need to have a rest. And then like, once you've had, that might have taken, a season, a year, 10 years to get up to be able to lift a really heavy weight. And then it takes like a 12-week cycle to get up to like a weightlifter doing an event where they're going to try to, lift the heaviest, for their body weight in that region for that competition and like beat their max. And it's not as if like once you've done that, it's like, sweet, now I've got to there, I've got that free. Nah, if you take 3 months off, what you probably need to de-cycle and deload for a bit after that, you don't just walk into the gym after 3 months and hit your 1 rep record lift max again. You'll like blow your bloody back out. You need to build back up to it. And it's this constant cycle of just a huge amount of work that you can't even stay there the whole time to even aim for and be at that crazy high level just sometimes, for a certain event, let alone you can't even be there the whole time. but you can be in decent shape the whole time, and it's not a crazy, it's actually like kind of enjoyable to get there and stay there once you're in a decent routine and you know what to do. That's sort of the analogy. It's the same with, especially with bird dog training. It's very much that of striking that balance, working out what you want, being aware of how much work it takes to get certain things, and then working out what you're willing to do, what you can do. And also, same with fitness too, by the way, massively in dog training, that actually it's not actually that difficult and that much work to get a really good result. That's probably actually more than you realize that you could get anyway. And if you actually did get it and you had it, you'd be like, holy shit, I can't believe how good this dog is. And it wasn't that hard to get it. You just had to do the right stuff. And actually, it was kind of fun to do and get. That's what it's like. That's what it is. And especially if you're prepared to have some patience, that's what it is, man. That's what it is. As soon as you're prepared to have the patience and take the time, it's just like sit back and enjoy it and do it. And you'll be surprised by what you can get. That's what it is. And that's what it is. That's the guy that I never even heard from. And they followed the blueprint and they took it really seriously. They're probably a little bit like crazy and obsessive about it and went really hard out. Yeah, and then they're messaging me like, holy shit, you should have seen what my dog was doing yesterday. And then that's usually the person that sends me that, like a year later, they're like, you should see it now. It's crazy. And then like 2 years after that, they're just like, oh my God, you should see what my dog's doing now. And that's what it's like, But yeah, the bird dog thing, there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it. And there's a lot more out there on it. And there's a lot of different disciplines and way of doing it and ways of training and different ways of hunting. You got waterfowl, you've got rivers, ponds, big water, small water, maize stubble. Like it's a huge, you can go from shooting ducks on, you can go from shooting paradise ducks on new grass, on flat paddock with short grass, super clean, flat area of, like a dairy paddock of short, clean grass, to like shooting ducks in a fast flowing river where the dog can like drown under the willows. And you can go from a dog just getting a duck out of the dead calm pond that's like 10 meters wide to running multiple blind crosses across a river or a lake or something like that, or in the sea, or it's a huge variation. And there's a huge variation of like expectations and what people want to do. So some people just want the dog to get, it's like, I want to train a duck dog. It's like, okay, cool, we'll show you how to do that. And you start talking about blinds and crosses and multiples. And they're like, no. I just want it to get a duck out of the water. And then another guy might be, I want to train a duck dog. And you go like, right, and you show him all the stuff. And you're like, right, we're done. And he's like, what about my 400 meter blind back? And it's like, okay, well, that's sort of a different thing. There's a lot to it, man. But yeah, in the bird dog boot camp, there's probably more than most people want to do. There's a lot there. There's a lot. And you can just sign up and have a big scroll right through the whole videos. Like the way it's laid out on the site is pretty epic. It's all indexed out. You can just scroll through, see all the thumbnails, see all the titles, click on a few and get a pretty good handle on what's going on pretty quick. Start watching a few, follow a few. If you think you like it, keep going. If you don't. But it's 2 years to a fully trained dog. It's like designed to follow after the deer dog training blueprint, or with a dog that has a pretty good stop, go and come. It's designed to follow with a dog that has a solid foundation of a certain quality that's pretty freaking difficult to get before about 8 or 10 months old. If you followed the deer dog training blueprint, you're good to go. If you're thinking about following the deer dog training blueprint and you want it to be a bird dog too, jump in, follow the bird dog boot camp, and you can jump into it. If you're someone that doesn't want a deer dog, but you want a bird dog and you think you might want to follow the bird dog training boot camp, you could either just do your own thing and get a good stop, go and come solid yourself. Or even if you don't want to train a deer dog, but you want a good bird dog and you think you might want to use the bird dog boot camp, even if you're not training a deer dog, you get the deer dog training blueprint, follow it, use the blueprint to get the foundation of the stop, go, come range. There's even a heap of scent work in there and introduction to water and vehicles and kenneling and tons of stuff. There's nothing in there that'll hurt a bird dog, and there's nothing in the bird dog boot camp that'll hurt a deer dog. And the deer dog training blueprint will give you everything that you need to follow the bird dog boot camp as far as the foundation goes. If you're following the deer dog blueprint to follow the bird dog boot camp, you could probably skip a bit of stuff and work through it a bit quicker, and just follow it to get your foundation solid. In the bird dog boot camp, I talk about introduction to gunfight. You don't have to have followed the deer dog training blueprint to follow the bird dog training boot camp. The bird dog training boot camp is a standalone series. Again, you don't have to have followed the blueprint, but you do need a good stop, go, and come, stop, go, and recall to start. But yeah, can you training a deer dog to be a bird dog too? My notes, you can totally do it. I've talked about how, and my next note was how I do it. I've talked a bit about how I do it. Even on the bird dog thing, 2 years to fully trained. 18 months to 2 years. So blueprint people that their dogs are at 8, 10, 12 months old or older, you're good to go. But expect to spend 8, 10, 12 months following the bird dog boot camp, and it'll be time very well spent too. And it's kind of fun, man. That's one thing about bird dog training. Honestly, it's fun. Running retrieves and stuff, it's cool. Yeah. 2 years until fully trained, 3 years until really good. If you follow the deer dog training blueprint and you get your dog solid on that, and then you jump in and do the bird dog boot camp, you'll have a very handy bird dog on its first season at 18 months to 2 years old. On its second season, 3 years old, 2.5 to 3 years old. On its second season, do some more work in between in the off season. And by 3 years old, you've got like a weapon, that you're not trying to fix stuff with. It's just, you've got it solid from the start, and it's just getting better and better. You're not in fix it mode. You're in just like enjoy it, watch it, progress mode. and here's another note. In hindsight, I wouldn't change anything. The bird dog boot camp was like training Fly. Fly was the last dog before I really had it worked out. From there, I wouldn't change much. Like, before I trained Fly, I knew how to do it. But training Fly was the dog that I trained. As far as my own, I was doing heaps of one-on-one stuff with heaps of different dogs, and I was doing the deer dog training boot camps where I was taking other people's dogs into my place and training them full-time, multiple dogs at once, and training my own dogs and doing one-on-ones, just flat out training dogs the whole time. But Fly, what I mean by training Miko and making the bird dog boot camp was like training Fly and writing the series of articles that I wrote about training Fly in NZ Hunter before I made the deer dog training blueprint. Meaning that when I trained Fly, pretty much everything that went into the deer dog training blueprint I did with Fly. That was the first time that I did all of that stuff, all in that order, all in that way with one dog. But I knew I had it before. I'd tested it all in bits and pieces and been developing that system for my whole life, basically, leading up to Fly. And then before I got Fly, I knew I had the whole system and I knew how I was going to train her. And I trained her that way. And I sort of meant to like put it all into magazine articles and that, but then the editor wanted me to keep it short and shorten it down. You can only do so much in articles and stuff. And then but yeah, I already knew how to do it before Fly, and I knew how I was going to train Fly before I trained her, and I knew she was going to be, I was past that point of like, I hope it goes well, I hope this works, I hope that, I hope this, I hope that. It was just like, I knew what I was going to do, and I knew I was doing it, and I did it. That was pretty much with the bird dog training with Miko. It was like, I wasn't working it out as I was going. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what I was doing, and I was just doing it. I had a couple of like big setbacks with Miko, and we'll talk. I've already talked about that heaps, and I don't really want to talk about it anymore, but I'll touch on it briefly here. But yeah, making the bird dog boot camp was like a big sort out. It was a mission, man. Like, holy hell, it kicked my ass several times for quite a while, and it was a hell of a journey. It was way harder than the Fly thing or the blueprint thing or damn near anything else. But I think I've got more notes on this after soon. We'll do it in that order. But yeah, it was the bird dog boot camp was like training Fly. It was the last dog before I really had it worked out. From there, I wouldn't change much. It was like I had it sorted before I trained Miko, but training Miko and making the bird dog boot camp was sort of like the final ordering and sorting it all out and getting it really imprinted in my brain and working out the last few, doing it all that way in that order, just solidifying it all and reconfirming everything and going, yep, okay, that's definitely it, basically. And from here, I wouldn't change much, man. And in hindsight, I wouldn't change anything in the bird dog boot camp. And it's all there. It was a massive pain in the ass, but it's all there. It's in the series. A year of basic training following the Blueprint and or Palmico series, and then a year of retriever training following the Bird Dog Boot Camp. That's, again, if I was training my own dog and no one was watching, that's what I'd do. I'd probably like just click back through my own series, not necessarily watching the whole videos, but just using them as like notes and just looking at the thumbnail and the title. Yep, sweet. That's, yep, doing that next, you know. I don't really like watching my own videos back, but I'd use the titles and the thumbnails as like order and notes, literally, to click back through and like train my own dog. Yeah, so a year on basic training on the Blueprint or Palmico and a year of retriever training on the Bird Dog Boot Camp. Maybe 9 months on each, doing it fast, so 18 months all up, but that's fast. And once it's 18 months versus 24, it's not much difference, is it? You know? So it's like, and it comes back to that thing like, you can have 24 months of chilling, knowing you've got heaps of time and this is just going to be fun and I'm definitely going to get there, or 18 months of like pushing and hoping you don't stuff it up. It's a no-brainer. And that's where I think about that old shepherd when I'm like, man, I tell you, I can get my dogs going at 8 months old. And he was just like, oh, just shaking his head. Oh, no. I was like, oh, no, trust me. They're good. They're good. And he was like, yeah, I know they're good. And I've done it too. But it's not worth it. It's not worth the stress, man. Just chill out and just work out how much time it actually takes to reasonably do it really well and just do that. That's what it is. Yeah. Again, my note, talk again about the dog that's ruined by 3 years old versus the dog that's finished training by 3 years old. You're going to spend 3 years ruining it or 3 years training it? That's kind of what it is. Having a dog, having a dog, do you want a dog that's ruined by 3 years old or finished training by 3 years old? 2 years is fast. Having a dog finished at 2 years and really good at 3 is good going. And that's really, and it doesn't matter which way how you do it. Guys that talk about, they start throwing retrievers to a 10-week-old pup, and then it's all positive and they're doing it however they want to do it. But the dogs that it's hunting by 12 months old, oh, you'd be mad not to start hunting at 12 months old. You've got to start hunting them young. You've got to do this and that. They'll tell you. But I'll tell you, you start them off young, but it still takes a good while before they get really good. And I tell you, it's hard to get a dog good by 3 years old. You know? And they'll say, like, it's so funny how so many people have so many different opinions and like arguing and, oh, that's crazy and all this and that and that. But when you really analyze it, most of us are all just talking about like different ways of doing the same thing and ending up at the same places at the same time. And like, yeah, you can argue, oh, but I had this dog doing this time, or but I had this dog that, and oh, but I heard that this and this guy did that. But like, what's just reliable and reasonable and that you can do consistently and all of that without lots of risk? And there's lots of ways of doing it. I'm not criticizing any other way. There's other way. You don't have to do it this way. There's lots of other ways of doing it very, very well that are very, very effective. And there's plenty of ways of making good arguments that doing it other ways is good too. This is just how I like it. That works very well. And I think there's a very good argument for doing it this way. And I think doing it this way is actually quite well suited to like when you're talking about something that lots of people can follow, and people that don't necessarily have tons and tons of time to train the whole time, or they don't have specialized training facilities and areas, and just like a good, solid, basic, sensible, straightforward way of doing it. Anyway. This is a really good note, and right on what I'm saying. Without going round in big circles, without like starting off young and going one way, but then it gets all messy, so you wait for the dog to come right, and then it gets a little bit better again, and then it's doing this, and then it's doing that, and then what if you could have just like waited and it just did it the right way the first time? Instead of going like this, what if you just took your time and just went like a straight, we're all trying to get to here. Some people go like this and get there. What if you just like went like that, straight there? That's sort of what I like to do. And another thing, without using invasive training methods, it's another thing that I've come across as I've researched bird dog training over the last couple of years, is a lot of it's older stuff. A lot of stuff tends to be either the newer style with a lot of treat training and a lot of very early unsteady retrieves and things like that, and it's a little bit more of this to get to there instead of a straight line. And then there's some of the old school stuff, which is like full on force retrieve and like e-collar and collar conditioning and some really hard stuff with being really hard with the bloody lead and long line and check cord and like training a hard out, like really crazy heel and force retrieve with a lot of force and like super full on stuff that I would never do. I've seen a fair bit of, I've seen some of that. Again, each to their own. I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm just talking about what I want to do, what I would do. Yeah, and again, balance. I think my stuff's pretty balanced in the middle of all of that. It's not. I'm not 100% positive. I'll use commanded disapproval and use a long line and stuff, but yeah, not like I don't use e-collars. I don't use treat training. Sort of right in the middle. I use pressure and praise. Minimum amount of pressure and praise required to get the job done. Yeah, without using like crazy invasive stuff. None of my stuff's crazy. I don't do a force retrieve. I don't do collar conditioning. I don't use e-collars at all. Yeah. Positive only. I don't do that. I'm not criticizing people that do that. Some great trainers do that. If you see someone else's stuff that they do that makes more sense than what I'm talking about, then just go and do that. Yeah, positive only treat, e-collars, puppy retrieving, throwing heaps of retrieves to a puppy. I don't know what this note is, but the bird dog boot camp is good. It's a good note. It's good, man. There's a ton of solid stuff in there, and it's based off a lot of the best, most fundamental proven systems and principles I could find. And I was, it's the same as the Deer Dog Boot Camp and all my training. It's just me wanting to train a good dog, and then like that's all my deer dog. And I actually developed all of my training for myself before I even thought about all of my deer dog training and all of the main fundamental principles of all of my training and everything before I even thought about helping other people how to do it and thought about making the Deer Dog Boot Camp and stuff. It was all for myself, and then I started writing about that inadvertently because I was writing a book about living in the bush, and then it all sort of gained it, but created its own steam sort of thing. But even though like I made the Bird Dog Boot Camp knowing that it was going to be, and I developed a lot of it in my head, knowing that it was going to be for other people as well. But it's the same. It's the exact same thing. It's just how would I want to do it, myself if no one was watching, and then also because that's how I train. I don't want to do trials. I don't want to do, and I just want it to be as easy as possible, but get to for me and the dog, but get to the best result possible, but also without getting distracted and doing anything unnecessary and trying to strike the best balance between how much work and what is reasonable while getting the best result possible at the same time. Yeah. Again, it's based off the best fundamental proven systems and principles that I could find, and then put into practice, and then working out what really works the best, and doing that, working up from first principles and kind of reverse engineering it. Again, making the main things and not getting gimmicky, etc. And like no ideology behind it either. No, like I'm not like I'd never use e-collars or I'd never use treats. It was like I used e-collars and treats, and I don't use them because I don't want to use them, because I tried using them and for me I found other ways that worked better, and I used them, and I just found that things just went better when, again, I make the main thing, the dog listening to you for you, understanding the dog and having the dog understanding you. And because that's what you really want, isn't it? That's what it really is. You want a dog that works for us and with us. So how do you do that? And it's like, so work out, if that's what you want, you don't want the dog to do it for you because it wants to and it knows how and it wants to do it. Not because it's going to get a shock if it doesn't, or it's going to get a treat if it does. You want it to do it because it wants to do it, and it knows you want to do it. It wants to do what you want it to do. So how do you do that? If you don't want to do it with treats and e-collars, then get rid of them and work out how to do it. And the other thing, again, straight line, straight to it. What do you want to do? Go straight there and get rid of everything else. That sort of, and it works, man. Like, trust me. I know how they work, and I've used them. Yeah, the Bird Dog Boot Camp's good, man. Like, honestly, it's my style of training based on the best fundamental proven systems and principles I could find, working it up from first principles and reverse engineering. Again, making the main things and not getting gimmicky. I could slightly change the order of some things, sort of the order and amount and volumes and stuff, but essentially it's all there. I made another note on this. I remember thinking about this idea. I think I wrote this down. This is another big realization I've had recently after doing this for 10 years now, and having thousands of people follow my videos and engaging with thousands of them too. Like talking about I wouldn't change much. And then because at some point, I think I'm going to cut this short, guys. I will cut this short as we're coming up on 4 hours. But there's so many more notes here. But I'm going to have to do another podcast. But yeah, after a big break and serious review and some real clear and honest hindsight, all my series still stand up really well, including the Bird Dog Bootcamp. And it sort of kicked my ass a few times and was quite a journey. But and there was times I was like, man, have I done this the right way, or is this how I should do this, or what? It just got so big and so long, and I spent so much time on it. It was like almost difficult. It got difficult to keep all of it in 100% perspective the whole time while I was doing it, especially towards the end. And after a big break and hindsight and reviewing it all and reviewing a whole bunch of other stuff and really looking back at it like clearly and objectively, I'm like, okay, it's good. It's good. And honestly, that's honestly where I'm at personally with it. And I'd potentially want to remake everything at some point, right from the Deer Dog Blueprint and the Palmico Dog Guide and the Bird Dog Bootcamp. And I won't even get into it at the moment, but yeah, basically all 3 series, all in one, different, but essential. But to do that will take me 3 to 5 years, and I'm definitely not starting at any time in the next 2 or 3 years. So, main point here is that if you're thinking about training a dog and you want to use my stuff, and again, if you don't want to, I'm not here to bloody twist your arm on it. It's all in my current 3 series. It's all there, man. And here's the thing. Here's this point and I did write it down. It's right here. Even if I did remake it, it's all the same stuff. And I'm just changing the format of it a little bit and making a refresh of it, trying to make it a little bit easier to watch and easier to follow and stuff like that, But again, that's not going to happen for years if I do it. But here's the thing is changing it. Anything I would change is splitting hairs. And here's the thing though, is that the amount that I would change it, 90% of people following it would change it more than I would change it remaking the whole thing anyway. Meaning that if I remake it and to try and change the order or the amount or to present a few ideas slightly differently, anyone that watches what's already there and follows it the best they can is going to interpret it and tweak it a little bit and change it more than I would change it by spending years remaking the whole thing anyway. So it's at this point, it's carrying on and remaking it is getting a little bit OCD crazy. where should I go with this at this stage with what's already there in my 3 series? So point being, like, yeah, if you want to do it and you want to follow my training, it's in the 3 series that are already there. And another question that someone had was is there going to be any big special on the Bird Dog Boot Camp? Because I've got a special on the Palmico series, which is like the Bird Dog Boot Camp. You can either subscribe, the Deer Dog Blueprint, you can either subscribe for $27 a month or you can buy the whole thing for lifetime own membership to it for $327. Or you can get a package with the Palmico Dog Guide and the Blueprint for $427. So you get a whole other series for only an extra 30%. I'm not doing that with the Bird Dog Boot Camp. I'm not... I think I've got some notes on this somewhere too. Yeah. There's no special on the Bird Dog series and there never will be. I have to stop giving my stuff away, man. Like, they're probably in the offer that's there at the moment where you get the Deer Dog Blueprint and the Palmico series, like lifetime membership for that cheap offer for both series. That probably won't be like that for long either. And like, it shouldn't have even been like that for all this time. The amount of time and money and effort that I've put into these series, like the amount of time, money and effort that I put into the Palmico series, like in the personal cost and stuff. Yeah, for me to just tack it onto the Blueprint and sell it for like 70% off, it should be $1,000 for all 3 series. Like the amount of work that I've put into it and like the amount of shit that's gone down over the last 10 years doing this is like kind of insane. You know, yeah, I've got to get something back out of it. So, yeah, there's no crazy special on the Bird Dog Boot Camp. There never will be. And yeah, the special that's on the Blueprint Palmico probably shouldn't be there still anyway. But yeah, so that's pretty much like, to recap, if your dog's a little bit hard to handle while you're hunting with it, make sure you do the training really well and you do enough of it to like a really high level and be really objective and realistic when you look at that and think about it and look at print. Look at what print was like at the end of the of the Deer Dog training Blueprint. Look at print in that free YouTube video, A Walk with Print. And also hunt them with have a go at putting a long line on, but get them really good first. A long line isn't a crutch, so you can like skip training and start hunting sooner and all of that sort of stuff. Get it all to a really, really high level and then put a long line on and smooth it out even more. Can you train a deer dog to be a bird dog? Yep, 100% you can. And I just spent like 3 years making a series on how to do it, and no, I'm not giving it away. But nah, honestly, yeah, bit of a bloody full on podcast, really. fair bit going on there. Some relatively serious themes, but yeah, it's all good. And yeah, I feel like I always say this, but fair bit coming up actually, and yeah, just had a big break, which was much needed and very good to do, and it's been very worthwhile. And yeah, when I say break from actually posting stuff and like posting podcasts and posting YouTube videos and posting everywhere. I've actually been filming and doing a ton of stuff, but just been keeping a little bit more to myself, and just like working on stuff and developing it a little bit, and just chilling out a little bit. Righto, team. We'll see you in the next one. See you later.